regular board meeting of the Ross Valley Sanitary District. I'm calling the meeting to order right now. Looking at what we do. The first thing we're going to do is adjourn to closed session.
Excuse me. Point of order. It's a public meeting. The public is allowed to speak on the agenda items. Item 3 is the closed session, and the public is here to speak on that item.
That's just right.
We're going to get there.
Yeah, that's our intent.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, point of order. Other municipal meetings I've been to, the public is allowed to speak before we go into closed session.
That's
correct. So what are we delaying right now?
We're not. He's opened the meeting, and I would expect that he would read the topic of closed session and then ask if there are any members of the public that want to speak on that item.
Okay, well, the closed session, the topic 3A is a conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Sanitary District Number 1 of Marin County versus Central Marin Sanitation Agency, the California Department of Corrections Rehabilitation, and all in Sonoma County Superior Court case. Okay. And next.
So we got 45 minutes before the next meeting, so will we get to speak in that time? Well, there's a Larkspur City Council meeting in an hour.
Pardon me?
So I just wondering if it's going to fit in that first 45 minutes. Will it?
We're going to go straight to public comment almost immediately.
Sweet, thank you.
So what's the next step?
So if there are members of the public who wish to speak, I would suggest they be
So
invited
at
up
this
to
time, if there are
one.
members of the public who would like to speak, we're going to limit your, you all can speak, you're limited to about 3 minutes. We'll be kind of flexible about it. We have a timer.
Oh, no. We can't have the podium being used because we have all everything set for the presentation, so she can
Speak.
Yeah. Oh, please, thank you.
My name is Marcia Crane. I live in Kentfield. Why has this board kept the public in the dark about this lawsuit? We haven't seen anything about it in the papers, in the IJ. There's very little about it. I think that you should have exposed this lawsuit more to people in this area. And, people like us with common sense and some sort of a moral compass cannot give you any input if we're not kept informed. And I think the Brown Act says that you should have disclosed this to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Susan Kirsch, and I submitted an email to you earlier today. So just to restate and have into the record that my request of action in your closed session tonight is that you postpone your vote on the CMSA settlement. Just to say that there's an environment where there is already a great deal of mistrust in the way much of government is happening, and agreeing with Basha that if you are to bring transparency to this process, including conducting the public's business in public, it would go a long ways to being able to establish greater confidence in the decisions that you as electeds are doing on the base of constituency. So encourage you to postpone your vote and so that the remedies that I lay out in the email can be considered.
Thank you.
My name is David from Larkspur. Yeah, same thing. This legal settlement is very dubious right now. I mean, right now, this cutting out Ross Valley and going straight into the Central Marin, whatever sanitary agency, it's a shared infrastructure. What's to say? Marin County Mark say, oh, we're pretty close. Why do we need to pay for the transit, sewage transit infrastructure? So I mean, this is how the system works. I mean, I think this is clearly a politically connected deal. I mean, I think there's a lot of people with eyes on it. The media is actually here. Megan Najee is out there. I hope she'll report on it, and people will be coming familiar with the terms of it. But I mean, let's not forget that it was the legal settlement with Campus, that took a developer put $500,000 option in and got $3-4 million in return. So we don't need to go down that Brett Richards rabbit hole. We just need to postpone this vote, negotiate under daylight. Let's let a judge look at it, in open court, and not a politically connected supervisor in secret meetings, these type of settlements, this is a known phenomenon in official corruption. We need to let legal experts, we need to let this be negotiated in daylight. I think we all need to have some integrity in this process. I think we'll do the right thing.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Carol Page, I have also sent you an email, and I have pointed out that I believe very strongly that you, Mr. Gaffney, are severely conflicted in this, and should you be party to this vote tonight, whatever vote is taken, it will be overturned as an illegal action. Where one is conflicted, you all are conflicted. So it will not stand. At the time this was originally filed, the directors were in favor of the litigation and felt that it was important to protect the interests of the district by going ahead with litigation. Since that time, what has changed? Two things. 3 new people on the board, and there is a favorable ruling that says, go ahead and try to proceed with it. It looks like a good deal. Give it a try. And yet, we are told you are trying to settle this. I would suggest to you that if you try to do this and give away assets or things that justly belong to the income and the infrastructure of this district and therefore are benefiting the ratepayers, that you will find yourselves back in the bad old days. And all of you know I've been further back in the bad old days than any one of you. And you don't need to be there again, I can assure you. So please do not go there. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else?
Captain Mulcahy, ratepayer, city property owner in Roxford. So on behalf of running next door to another very important heat meeting, I just wanted to speak on behalf of the ratepayers that have been paying an exorbitant amount in the last few years versus the Ross Valley to support you. And I feel when this started to be revealed to us as the public that it felt very underhanded, not professional. And I've been to several meetings in the past several months, and what I've heard said many times again is that I'm looking, this board has been looking to make amends to Larkspur, to be in front with them, to be open to them in regards to what's going on with pieces of land and property and negotiations that are within the jurisdiction of Larkspur. And I'm not feeling that tonight. And I think you know the right method to go about making that more public and more discussed as we go forward in life together.
Thank you. Next. Yes.
Jessica Green, Fairfax. I have to say that I just heard about this yesterday. Like, I think most of Marin really doesn't know what's going on at all. And I think it's important for everybody to know what's going on and be able to have some say or influence. So.
Joan Bennett from Kentfield. I have pretty much 2 questions, not necessarily comments, which I mentioned in the email that I sent to you last night, which I think cloud any potential settlement that has been released to the public that we know thus far. One, if you have a conflict of interest, even the impropriety or the appearance of such should lead you to recuse yourself from voting on this. And then the second matter that disturbs me greatly is I've heard that Katie Rice is overseeing the mediation of this matter along with Al Burrow. Given the fact that she is a Marin County supervisor and the county of Marin is a defendant in the lawsuit, there's no way that she should be overseeing any mediation of this matter whatsoever because she will act in the interests of the county and not Ross Valley Sanitary District or its ratepayers. So given those 2 circumstances surrounding the terms of the settlement of this suit, I think that you better reassess what you're doing because you're, as Gerald says, you're going down a very perilous road.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Peter Hensel, Court of Madera. Yeah, I'm just kind of coming abreast of the issue here, but I think that bottom line, any policy that you guys have that enables potentially a buyout of the state, San Quentin, and a big mega project over there worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, and tons of CO2 emitted into the atmosphere for more cars, because transit-oriented development is kind of a joke, really. I mean, I think you probably see the debate raging on the IJ about this, but it's really not proved that people that live in these so-called transit-oriented developments are going to give up their cars. They're still going to have to drive, and they're going to want to drive to our parks, our open space, and so on. So I think, and this has been going on for a long time. McKinsey, since 2003, this has been his pet project, and I think he's going to really roll the dice on this. And I would urge you guys to listen to grassroots. You see a lot of people here tonight that are from grassroots, and we're saying, hey, these big, huge developments like Wing Cup are going to be very, very, very controversial. And I just hope you guys will think about that and make the right decisions.
Thank you.
I'm Nancy Okada. I'm from San Anselmo, and I only found out about this recently as well. Transparency is a very important word in local government, and I would hope, in particular, the Ross Valley Sanitary District, which I first became aware of when your board of directors was doing all sorts of things with the grand jury investigation, then through various other things, including Mr. Richards' arrest and multiple spills, various other things that have happened. Really, the Ross Valley Sanitary District has money to send out to residents like myself. This is not a bill. This is notification that your rates are going up and up and up, and we're putting cameras in your sewage and this and that. You can't tell us about this lawsuit and the impending implications it has not only to us but to the whole area that's concerned about the tremendous amount of traffic that's being generated by building huge mega density units all over this county, and that the Ross Valley Sanitary District can't represent us. I would like to see some real transparency. I'm concerned about your alleged conflict of interest, and I know that the vote sitting up there without you voting would be probably 2-2, and I really think that it's important that this has more light of day, that you in fact take this to the public and you spend those public relations dollars that are on those glossy brochures that go out to residents in the Ross Valley like myself, and educate the public on what this thing is and what you're planning to do and how we hook up with the Central Sand in San Rafael. People don't know, and you know what? I talk to people all the time and they want to know. And this is local government. This is the only place where transparency can truly exist. We can't get into Obama's cabinet and talk to them. We can talk to you, we know you, and we want you to represent us. Please represent us and tell us what the facts are and do what we want and have a dialogue with the public. You owe it to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've commented already, but may I ask a question?
I don't think we can respond.
Well, if later on you will inform us when the trial date in this matter is. There is none?
Thank you very much.
I'd like to make a comment, if the public's finished.
Just as an FYI,
I'm not going to respond to anything they said.
Okay.
This is my personal
Wait,
opinion.
what is this
It's a comment.
procedure here?
Can we hear the comment, please?
Let me ask legal counsel.
The procedure generally is to accept public comment and to not engage in a, pardon me, and to not engage in a conversation with the public. If you'd like to make a statement, you may.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have made statements at the two previous Ross Valley Sanitary District Board meetings and the Central Wind Sanitation Agency meeting that took place last Tuesday when that board voted for the settlement agreement. I was not included in the settlement agreement. Pam Meigs and I sit on that commission, but we were not allowed to vote or participate in the meeting. Now is the time for transparency. The public has a right to know the conditions of any settlement prior to us going into closed session. The proposed settlement needs to be taken out of secret sessions and given the light of day. I have made statements at previous meetings regarding the potential and possible conflict of interest of President Gaffney, since he and his company, Barter Wells, historically have been contractors to two of the defendants in this lawsuit, and I believe he should step aside. Thank you.
Well, then I guess I get a chance to make a comment.
Please.
In my campaign literature, I wrote that I have worked for virtually every sanitation agency in Marin County over the years. I have been a consultant to this district 10 years longer than I've ever been a consultant to Central Marin Sanitation Agency. I've probably worked on more projects for this district than I have for Central Marin. We had two attorneys look at whether I have a conflict of interest or not. Frank saw those, and both attorneys have said, I don't have a conflict of interest. I expect what we should do is get an independent attorney's opinion on this. Perfectly all right with me. And anyway, that's my comment. Now, okay, sure.
Pending the determination of the conflict of interest, or the resolution of that, certainly this settlement agreement should not go forward. I mean, until it's clear.
What's your name, please?
I'm sorry, Carrie Stabner from Mill Valley. I mean, that just seems to me that that would be the logical progression here.
I also want to comment on transparency, integrity, and honesty. And I personally feel that when I went to the CMSA board meeting and I did not know what was in a settlement that the CMSA board commission voted on, I was appalled. So somehow the process was skewed, and I don't know how, but I do know some of it, and I can't talk about it because it was in closed session. But I want to tell you that I cannot stand social injustice, and I'm here to do what I can to open it up to the public and let the public participate. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody else? So we're now going to adjourn.
And make one very short comment. Yes, very, very short.
Yeah.
Michael Borstein says that there. The matter at hand is in litigation. Not an attorney, but when I read comments from an attorney that says comments A through 12 are meant for the board members only and general manager only, and you should not discuss the contents of this email and attachment with anything else. I think that if we are not, listen to the whole thing. I think I would be breaking the law if I were to make statements openly about what is currently in litigation. It is my intent that this not be done behind closed doors, and when we have something to show, that it will be shown. And I think, I could be wrong, this is not a vote tonight of let's go and this is the final decision. The documents I believe that we have in front of us are draft documents. Okay, so I love it that everybody has been emailing me and telling me your opinions, but we're not working on a final document tonight. You can't read it from there. But if you look, this is a draft document that we've been looking at. This is what we are considering, whether we want to move ahead, go back, change, or anything else. So I've been working under the idea that that which is in litigation, until I'm told otherwise, legally, I can't discuss that. So I think we've been, my understanding that which we are able to discuss on many other items, bond purchasing, has been 100% and completely transparent since I have been here. On this particular issue, since we are in litigation, there are items that I am told I'm not allowed to discuss. And so I don't want you to think that I'm hiding anything. When I'm told I can discuss, or as we discuss it within a release, our legal counsel will tell us to do so. I can't answer a question.
Just for the record, I have to say, I have not opened the emails that came from our council. I refused to open those emails, so I don't know what is in that agreement. I do know I attended the Central and Sanitation Agency Board meeting. They reported out of their closed session. They say they approved what was before them. Now, if they've approved it, there's not much left to go here. We're getting real close, and the public needs to know that.
Okay, Pam?
I was going to say the same, that they reported out that they agreed with the settlement. The settlement that we don't know what was given to the CMSA. So, you know, a settlement is different from a lawsuit, by the way. A settlement is something that can open, I think, transparency to the public. Closed session for a lawsuit is a horse with a different color. So, it's true what Frank is saying, so that's all I was going to add.
Okay, I'm going to speak up. And just note for the record that this board has been given the same documents that CMSA had. And so if you're saying that
I was told the draft was not the same thing given by the manager. And I do not know what changes were done. I don't know what
the draft you had was the draft that went to CMSA. So if CMSA,
but we didn't see it.
So I just want to make sure for this record, and I want to be very clear for this record, that it is our understanding that you were provided the same documents that the rest of the members in this lawsuit.
We don't know, Jolie. They didn't report it out. There was
okay,
nothing
I'm just saying, that's all I'm saying.
There was nothing handed to the public. We don't have a clue, only by hearsay.
Could you identify
Okay,
yourself,
we're not,
please?
we're moving on.
Yes, Jolie Houston, former district counsel, still counsel for the district on this litigation. And I'm just noting for the record, it is our understanding that the people in this litigation, the terms in this draft agreement, all parties got the same document.
Hi, thank you. I had a question only about the fact that it sounded like 2 of the 5 board members weren't invited or were pushed out of a certain meeting. I just want to check how that could be possible.
Well, you want me to?
Yeah.
I just try to address, so first of all, we need to bring this back.
We need to continue the discussion.
To answer the question, Pam and Frank sit on the CMSA board as representatives for Ross Valley. When the CMSA board met in closed session on this item, it's standard practice for the parties, in this case, since we're a counterparty in that lawsuit, and their board was discussing that lawsuit, the board members from the opposing, essentially on the opposing side of that lawsuit, would typically leave the room for the closed session discussion. So it's a relatively common practice as far as I understand. So that's why it
seems pretty incestuous.
You see, the question was, what happened was we discussed in a number of sessions in the board.
Tom, we need to maintain order.
Okay.
This
is not going to protect from prosecution.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Some people came in late, and I would really like to, the people have come out of their way and their time. I would really like to see if there's anybody else out there who has anything else to say before we go into closed session.
Yeah, who's going to be all this $1 million
You've
savings?
spoken. Is there anybody else who just came? Yes.
I'm sort of new. I mean, I really am just learning about these issues that come so fast. But I guess for me, I would like to say I'm really concerned about closed-door session meetings where certain areas are designated as PDAs. I know a couple of years ago, there was a situation where Kinsey wanted to designate the San Quentin Vision Planner in the prison as a PDA without any public oversight. When we found out that he was having these backdoor meetings and trying to push this through. We came to the meeting and we objected, and they put it on hold. But it seems like, and I'm new in this particular circumstance, it seems like the same players, Kinsey, Rice, various people are trying to designate that same area as a PDA, again, behind closed doors. That's my understanding of the situation. And I guess I'm just saying, as an activist, a longtime community organizer, I'm very concerned about backdoor meetings taking place. And I will say that if we find out who the various politicians are that are having these secret little meetings, we'll make sure that we organize to vote them out next time, like we did on the water board. We're trying to get rid of the old boys network and make a fresh start here. And I think the public is becoming more and more intelligent and aware about what's happening here in this county. So I'm just saying I'm concerned, and when I fully understand this situation, I will begin organizing again around this issue.
Hi, I'm Sue Matson-Krings, and I apologize. I'm graduated after work, but I'm just here to vote for transparency. And as the previous speaker said, I would acknowledge that I have the same viewpoint, that I'm alarmed at the lack of transparency and the lack of information given to the public about the things that could really impact the whole county in a big way.
David from Larkspur, one more time. This $1 million savings that the Department of Corrections is going to get, or for the San Quentin, where is that coming from? It's coming out of the pockets of Ross Valley ratepayers, right? It's shared infrastructure. Now we got, it's just $1 million less that we got to make up the difference. I mean, you guys are under chronic budget issues anyway. You could use that money. This is how sewage gets to the plant. How can you legitimately negotiate for us? When you're just giving it away, you just don't. I mean, it's not legitimate. There's no credible. Wait, could you look at me, Silva, Gaffney, Bornstein, please. There's no credible way you can explain it, right? I mean, it's a direct sellout of the people you're ostensibly representing, right? It's $1 million, $2 million, whatever the savings is. It's coming out of our pockets, and it keeps coming out of our pockets. That's all we get from you guys. So please, just do the right thing. Just honor that intention to represent, to be the transit infrastructure, to share that sacrifice, and not let a connected political insider come in and just give it away, because it wouldn't be right.
Thank you. Okay, now, council.
Now, the board goes into closed session.
We're going to now adjourn to closed session. Thank you very much.
Is that a motion?
There's no motion necessary.
I just wanted to say I object to going into the closed session. I believe it should be discussed totally in public.
Yeah.
And if I have to, I guess I will attend the closed session. I want to see what this so-called draft settlement is that I refused to open on the weekend when council emailed.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
So we're not planning on a meeting because we feel that this should be an open session. So we're going to organize right now, and we're just going to stay here for the meeting. So share it with us, and we'll put it on film and broadcast it on public radio.
It's standard practice.
Live streaming this.
Say again?
It's
Standard practice for boards to have closed sessions in the room where they're going to have their meeting. So we respectfully request that the members of the, say again?
Is it a public issue, and is it going to impact the public?
It's legitimately listed as a closed session item under the Brown Act. So
we're going to object, and we're going to just stay here for the meeting.
Is there another place the board can go?
We could reconvene back at Carter.
I don't think we can do that because it has to be noticed. We can't just bounce around. It has to be noticed.
Let's say,
I can go ask the police department to.
yeah, this is a pretty proper process.
It's
for public
completely
meetings.
standard.
Well, could you film it at least? Could you put it on films?
No,
We put it in
no.
public TV?
Here's the great thing, everything that's been standard up until now
Why
hasn't
don't you
worked out very well.
discuss this in closed session, and we'll come back to you we need to decide how to open it up. It is a legal, right now, it's a legal session. There's negotiations between attorneys and all that. And so, we've heard what you said. You've got some good ideas
So
here.
could we go for maybe 2 minutes and then come
And
back?
yes, you can come back.
We're gonna have an open
Public
session.
meeting.
We're
Come
gonna
back.
have an open session begins.
You just gotta hang out outside? And hold. Can you just do that at the end then?
Do what at the end?
Just your closed session? So we can say?
No, we've got it, set up now.
Okay.
We probably shouldn't do that.
Okay.
You can come back.
But Mr.
What
Gaffney,
we'd
you
like
need to
to do-
recuse yourself from voting.
That's a good point.
Participating because of your alleged
The board has
conflict of
received,
interest
the board has received
alleged
comments from the
resolved.
public.
The FPPC is.
If you guys, say again? If you guys can by motion move the closed session to the end of the meeting, if you'd like, but that won't change the fact that the closed session is for the purpose of the attorney advising its client on ongoing litigation, and that's not something that the public has a right to attend. The Brown Act is really clear on that.
I think what's going on here is that we were, CMSA reported out at a public meeting.
Right.
But the information was not given. And I think the public really wants to see that information. And I think by right, that becomes public information.
Yeah.
We cannot just say we accept the settlement.
We got another comment?
So I think that's what's going on.
Let me comment on this.
Another attorney.
The board, yes, Pam, and, we keep this up and we might have another one here.
Wait a
I don't know
minute.
what's happening.
Wait
So,
a minute.
wait a minute, let me make a statement. Why, there's a level of misinformation out there that this board is voting on a settlement tonight. It's not. So, wherever you got the information, it's wrong. There is a discussion about litigation. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of it. There is a discussion. I do not anticipate, nor do I expect, nor am I going to ask for a vote, period.
It will preempt litigation.
Okay, and then to clarify from Ms. May's question, and I don't want to overstep new counsel's position
Well,
here,
that's why I
but,
was asking the question.
well,
Is that
under
you're
the
no
Brown
longer-
Act,
You're no longer.
well, I know, but for purposes for this litigation, and under the Brown Act, a draft settlement agreement that has not been approved, ratified, or by the members to this settlement agreement will not be made public until all of the members have approved it, either in a closed session or out at a public session. So that's why CMSA did not provide any document. They may have approved it in concept or wanted to go forward with direction to pursue the settlement along those terms. But at this point, there is no public document, and there will not be until this board approves those settlement terms, and as we've approved other settlement agreements in the past, that they would be in the public setting. So the public
So
would see
then they
the
go to the
settlement.
public, you understand that?
After
You
the
approve
decision.
it, then it goes to the public, then it gets negotiated. But we have to do it in closed session.
That's
It's being
backward.
negotiated right now.
Exactly.
A negotiation.
So we could call a point of order, and under the rules of our meeting decorum, you could be determined to be out of order.
Whoa.
Oh, they can all be thrown in jail, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But remember, even the perception of bias by the people who participate in this, and your counsel knows this, if your ruling on bias is incorrect on 1090, and he is perceived as being in conflict and having a bias, that's the end of it. So
That's the end of
perhaps
what?
you could,
So you have nothing
perhaps
to
you
lose
could
then.
structure, I'm speaking to your attorney now.
Thank you for the comment.
So
Thank you.
perhaps you could structure it
Thank
so
you for
that
the
you
comment.
are advising them they are not doing anything that bias would be displayed or used against the district. Thank you.
Hang on. I would advise that the district board go into closed session and that they invite the public to leave for closed session. That's what every public
This
agency
is not lawful. You
board.
know the
in
conflict.
That's what every
You
public
know the bias.
agency board does in the state. The Brown Act is incredibly clear on when the board gets to go into closed session outside of the presence of the public.
The Brown Act protects us.
Yes, it
From
does,
you.
and it also allows the board to meet with its lawyer in closed session.
This makes a mockery of the Bound Act.
So at this time, I would advise that the board ask that the public leave the room so you can go into closed session.
Can I please speak before you do?
Wait, we are asking the board to go in closed. The board wants to go in closed session. We're asking the audience to please leave so that we can conduct our closed session.
I didn't hear a ruling that you were closing the, are you ruling that, sir, before the public is finished talking?
Do you want to speak?
I was trying to speak, I'm sorry, I'm Vivian Braunschweig, I live at 330 Good Hill Road in Penfield, and I find it very unfortunate that this meeting and the timing of it is such when most of the neighbors and the school families are out of town because of President's Week vacation. I think there's something about that. I recognize what Mr. Kinsey is trying to do because he is so fearful, as we all are, of West Marin losing their agricultural designation under current state law. And that is what is driving him to these extreme things. But I don't think balancing it on the back of agencies stealing different things is a good idea. I think that, and I hope that the Ross Valley Sanitary District will, in their session of good judgment, decide to keep the land if they can under their jurisdiction and not give it to the Central Marin Sanitation Agency. That's all. Thank you for your time.
So public, please be excused.
I meant to write you all and
Please do.
you want letters still?
Please.
I'm ready to write it. I thought I had to write over it.
Explain the Pledge of Allegiance.
We have to make
Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Zilla. Here. Meigs. Here. Morrissey.
Here.
Egger.
Here.
Gaffney.
Here. Thank you. The report on action taken by the board during closed session, we didn't take any, we gave directions to legal counsel. Item 5 is approval of agenda. We are going to continue item 8D, which is on the consent calendar.
Can I add one thing to that, please?
Yes, any other changes to the agenda?
Where's, oh, I'm looking at one here. So I work at Marin General Hospital, and I want to know if that would be a conflict of interest, because if this, well, it's continued, so it wouldn't matter, never mind. Wouldn't matter.
Any other changes to the agenda?
Greg, are we pulling 13?
We're pulling item 13.
Thank you. Yeah, I apologize for not passing on earlier. Item 13, we're asking that be pulled for this evening. We're in discussions with representatives from the union, and just out of courtesy and allowing those to progress, we would request that we pull the job description item, and we'll expect to bring that back to you at a future date after we've discussed the matter with the union.
Thank you.
There was 8D pulled?
8D was pulled, was continued.
Do we need a motion to continue that?
I don't think a motion that for both 8D and 13 would be appropriate.
Okay.
I move that we pull 8D and 13.
Second?
Actually, continue.
No.
We'll continue 8D.
Yeah, continue 8D.
We're going to continue on both.
Second?
Any further discussion about the board? Public discussion?
Is that all we're going to hear about the closed session meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Why did we even say that?
Well, we didn't know what the result was going to be. It's not only yet.
And how can we be more informed?
Can we give a chance to this?
Okay, any other comments from the public? Yes.
So you said that you gave direction to council in the closed session.
Yes.
Can we be informed what that direction is?
No. The Brown Act requires that only certain actions have to be reported out after closed session. So when you meet in closed session with your lawyer, you're talking about litigation strategy, and you're talking about things that the Brown Act allows you to discuss with your counsel outside of the public meeting. And certain actions have to be reported afterwards. Settling a matter, deciding to sue somebody, that kind of stuff. And that type of action didn't take place in closed session today, so there's no reportable action.
So were you the person who said there was no conflict of interest with regard to Mr. Gaffney? And can we?
I'm not at liberty to comment on that because that's a matter that's subject to attorney-client privilege.
Oh, wait a minute, no. I mean, certainly a conflict of interest would have to be something that the public has a right to know about. I mean, if that was, well, but are you the?
We're going to get an independent legal opinion on the conflict of interest.
Who picks the independent?
Pardon me?
How do we know it's independent? Who picks it?
I'm going to find some options for independent counsel and work with the board and staff on selecting one.
Okay.
There are certain firms and attorneys who have expertise in this. I don't, if you're asking whether we're going to consult with the public on which firm to pick, I don't think so.
Does the public get to know the process, or do you just quietly pick somebody and that person makes a ruling and you say, okay, this is the ruling?
Okay, we're approving, let's move on. We're not to 6 yet. You're going to hear the results of the independent counsel situation.
But we're not going to.
Actually, that's probably not true because when the board, just like when an individual hires an attorney, when an agency hires an attorney, that relationship is subject to confidentiality and privilege. And so an attorney such as myself or an outside counsel that gives an opinion to the board, that is not subject, that's not open to the public. If an individual board member assesses that he or she has a conflict and makes a choice about that, that's their decision.
What I'm raising here is more along the line of the bid process. So if you are using certain criteria to vet a bunch of people who will then be making a ruling which may have an adverse effect on the ratepayers in their opinion, it would seem to me that there ought to be a little transparency in there somewhere.
Thank you for the comment.
I have a question.
Okay, this is open time for public.
Wait a minute, I have an open question on public records requests.
Hang on.
There's no public records request if they want to know what the outcome is.
Hang on. The item on the table, I think there's a motion on the table related to the agenda.
To continue two items.
To continue two items. Can we finish that discussion?
Okay. Yeah, that's what it was. Any further discussion by the board? No, all in favor?
Aye.
I want to pull one, please. Are we on the agenda?
We're on the agenda, yes, we are.
Yes,
And
we
you
are.
got another item to pull?
Yes.
Just continue.
Which one?
Trying to, C.
8C.
So on attachment A.
Hang on.
Whoa. We're not just approving the agenda.
What we're doing is approving the agenda. We're not yet to the consent item.
You want to pull 8C?
Yeah,
But we're not there yet.
Not there
That
yet.
comes when we get to item 8.
We'll get to consent.
Yes.
Because one of them was.
Any more? We've approved the agenda with one of that. Now it's open time for the public to raise items.
We should have a motion in a second to approve the agenda.
That's what we did with those two items. That's my understanding.
That was a motion?
That was my understanding of the motion.
And perhaps we should introduce our new counsel to those.
Yeah.
No one knows who she is. So Ross Valley Sanitary District has a brand new counsel this evening.
My name is Andrea Clark. I'm with the law firm of Downey Brand, based in Sacramento.
So Downey Brand will provide.
Now we need to approve the agenda. Okay, so we need a second on approval of agenda.
Well, Andrew's interpreting it that by continuing those two items, we also approve.
We also approve.
the rest.
Okay.
So that motion is done, so we're now on item 6.
Item 6, open time for public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Members of the public may address the board the issues that are within sanitary district number 1 jurisdiction. The board can hold no discussion during this time. So, are there any comments from the public? Seeing none.
Wait.
Move on to.
One person.
There it is, okay.
So I just want to understand, so there is now a new attorney
Okay.
a new attorney for the board. The previous attorney said there was no conflict of interest. Is that it? And just,
Please don't talk about what the attorneys have said about your
Yeah,
conflict.
okay.
That's not something for the public to know about right now.
No, she just wants clarification about who, the previous attorney who was there before you, Jolie, she was the one who said there was no conflict of interest, and you have yet to make it.
I'm not at liberty to comment about
Okay, so
where
yeah.
the attorneys are at on that issue.
so
Okay.
what we can look forward to is in the future, someone will be selected to determine whether or not there is a conflict of interest.
The board has, because this has already been said in public, the board has instructed me to find outside counsel to give another opinion to the board on this conflict issue, to the extent that it's a board conflict issue, that's an issue that relates to the board. So I am not going to talk right now about what the process will be on that. I have yet to figure that out.
And that will also be done in closed session to determine
the
hiring
advice,
of another independent counsel?
It likely would be. The advice that independent counsel gives to the board would be given in closed session.
Is that because it's a personnel issue?
No, because it's a potential litigation issue.
It's a what?
Potential litigation.
And it would be for the board, not for the individual involved.
Correct.
Okay, so would the individual have to give his own attorney to refute allegations?
I'm not going to talk about this anymore. I'm sorry.
Okay, I think we're done with 6. Any other comment from the public? Okay. Standing committee reports out. Standing committees and HR.
Talk about HR. We had a very short discussion in the past during the years when things were not maybe so clear. We had safety incentive programs that are not up to date with what's being done as considered best practices in the industry. And so new best practices for safety incentive programs are being discussed and hopefully will be implemented. Just to give a very short example, the safety incentive program that exists now is only for union represented employees only, which means if a staff member came in and saw, oh my God, my monitor is at the wrong angle and I'm getting carpal tunnel, that person would not be available to receive a safety incentive award. So anyway, this will be a more global and hopefully more utilized way of doing a safety incentive program, and Sasha will report that back to us. We were going to, one of the items tonight that got pulled is consideration of approving a USA Locator technical job, full-time position. It's being done now by multiple people, and there's some interest in consolidating that into one position, but the union wants to have some input on it, so before we can say yay or nay, the union has to be discussed. And the monthly report on human resources, everything's moving forward as was discussed before. There's really nothing new there.
Any questions from the board?
I have on HR. I have a lot of questions on the report, but Sophie's not here. So can I ask for the next meeting and if Sophie be here?
Certainly, or if you want to, reach out to her directly on any items of the report, you're also welcome to do that. And she's in the district offices all days on Wednesdays of every week as well. So if there's anything in the HR monthly report that you want more information on, she can be easily reached to give you that.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, the Finance Committee met and we discussed consent item 8D, which has been pulled, so we don't need to go into that any further. It's regarding the issuance of Central Marin Sanitation Agency refunding revenue bonds, and we pulled that from our agenda tonight. We also didn't get a monthly legal activities review because they hadn't gotten their bills in a long time, so we didn't have that.
You will be getting an updated one that'll catch you up on the past month and the current month.
And any more comments? Comments from the public? Okay, thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 8, consent calendar. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Yeah, I'd like to close 8C, please.
Okay. 8D has already been continued. Any other?
Attachment A.
Wait, we're still, okay, no other consent items to be pulled?
I would just note that video timestamps aren't on every item. I wondered.
Yes.
I'm sure, was that intentional?
Because the video that the CMCM received from us apparently was faulty, so by the time he got it, and then he literally had sent me the link with the day I sent these out to you guys. So they will be updated again. Right.
What are we talking about?
The video timestamps are not filled in on every agenda item.
Yeah.
That was part of our new system.
Okay. So item 8C, discussion, Pamela?
Yes, on attachment A.
8C is approved contract change orders, 337 in progress building number 5 for the Magnolia Truck Line Rehabilitation Project in the amount of about $285,000.
Okay, so my question is, on attachment A, the first page, there's a line drawn through the, and further agrees to waive all rights to file claim with respect to any difficulties arising from or as a result of this change. It's lined out, it's initialed, and I was curious if you could explain that, please.
I'm going to ask either Charlie, Joyce, or Randall Ishii to address that.
Sure, I'll handle it. Director May, Charlie Joyce, Department Caldwell, Project Manager of Magnolia Truck Sewer Project. The contractor in this case, and you'll see on the other change orders as well, the progress of the work, there have been changes that have come up that, while the process of this particular change order, so change order number 3, looked for adjustments in some of the bid item quantities, there were other things that have surfaced on some of these items that doesn't allow him to be able to identify all aspects of the contract change order at the time of this prosecuting this change order. So, by Gary Gelati said needs, there is the potential, for example, on later on in the same area we found a new lateral that wasn't identified in the drawing, it wasn't in the district records that we had to take care of. So that needed to be included and incorporated as part of the work.
So in other words, the contractor waived his right to file a claim to any difficulties arising from the change order. Is that it? He waived his right to claim?
Said he
No,
won't
he
waive
did
his
not
right.
waive his right.
No, he did not waive his right. Basically,
That's
if additional aspects come up as part of the work, prosecuting that part of the work, he wants the ability to come back and request an additional change.
He's saying he may disagree with that, with your numbers.
Exactly. Well, it's not, we sit down with them and agree with all the numbers before we have, but something else may
arise during the execution of this portion of the work that required to get another change.
Another lateral that you didn't know about.
For example, it is in a section, one from Lucky Shopping Center as an example, comes across and ties into the Mount Camp parking lot. We videoed that line, and it's in an area, it connects to an area where the pipes partially collapsed and it's flooded, and we couldn't see the lateral. And the district records don't show a lateral coming across in that location, so we've actually improved the lateral records for the district as part of the project. That's how that worked through. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Kind of.
I haven't seen that before. So a question for council on this. Is this a risk to cross that out and to set us up? Seems awfully strange.
Well,
It's
I
a
mean,
21,000, I've had.
right, I mean, at some level, yes, if prior, the contractor was waiving its rights to file a claim and they are no longer willing to do that, that is some level of risk. The question is it a reasonable risk to take? I mean, what are the competing reasons to allow them to do that?
Greg, what's your take on this?
Based on Charlie's description, it makes sense to me. I think what they're saying is we agree to everything else in this change order, but we don't want to have such a blanket closure that if there is something else that comes up as we complete the work, we like the opportunity, I think in this case being the contractor, to revisit that with you. Am I expressing that correctly, Charlie?
Yes.
Okay. So to me, and also we walked parts of the job a few weeks back, and I think the example of the lateral he gave right at the street here, it's basically allowing for, if there's some other surprise here as executing the work under the change order, we at least have the opportunity to continue to refine it. So in putting that together with Andrea's comments, anytime you strike something like this, you can objectively say you incrementally increase some future risk, but it seems very reasonable under the circumstances. So I would certainly defer to the folks that are closest to the ground on this. The language makes sense to me to have it changed. So I don't have
$3 million contract.
This particular this particular minor strike is only affecting this change order though, and it's not affecting the contract.
Okay. Anybody else care about this? All right.
Okay, so looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar, including item 8C.
A motion to approve the consent calendar, including 8C.
Second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any comments from the audience? All in favor?
I was going to say, real quick, after you're done tonight, depending on time, we're actually doing CFPT work right out in front of Hall Middle School tonight, finishing up the stretch doors. Work is active.
Come on out. Reviewing.
Party
Make sure you have your work budget on.
You got a mixer, margaritas?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 9, consideration of approving the rate payment request for a refund of sewer service charges, number 11 South Minot Street, San Juan.
Yeah, and so Wendy Miller is actually out sick this evening at home, so I'll do a brief introduction to this. She prepared the staff report. So what you have before you is a request for a refund from a customer, Mr. Draper, who I believe is here this evening. And the basis for the request for the refund is to change the equivalent dwelling unit or EDU count for the property in question from 2 to 1 EDUs and make the appropriate changes, obviously, to the rate. The concern or problem with that basis for a rate refund is that the district relies entirely, or very largely, I should say, on the Marin County tax assessor records that establish and assign the equivalent dwelling unit counts to the, I think, roughly 19,000 parcels that we bill on. And the language in the new rate ordinance makes it very clear that we utilize the Marin County EDU data. We supplement it in some cases with other information, but that is the basis for assigning the EDU count. We had suggested to Mr. Draper that if there was a concern with the EDU count, to attempt to get it corrected with Marin County, and if that were successful, then we would have a basis for adjusting the sewer rate to reflect the one EDU. Our understanding is that Marin County has reaffirmed in their records that the 2 EDU count is correct, and therefore that's the correct basis for the sewer rate charge. So the staff recommendation is to not approve the refund or the change in rates for this property. Really fundamentally because at this point, you're essentially you're granting an exception to a really fundamental part of our entire billing system, and at that point, we're losing the objective basis for how we're assigning the rates. We know it's not a perfect system, but we do, as many of the wastewater utility districts in the county do, we rely on the county to maintain the EDU counts for the parcels, and that's what we rely on. Again, with 19,000 of them, our ability to evaluate each one individually and so on is just not practical. So we have recommended denying the refund request for those reasons and maintaining the 2 EDU basis for the sewer service at the property. And that is really, you have a couple of attachments to the staff report, just the county tax roll information, and you can see some of the highlighted items. The living unit count of 2 and the resulting wastewater charge, those are the highlighted items on those attachments. You also have Mr. Draper's letter to the district presenting his basis for the refund request. So that's kind of the basic information and the staff recommendation, and with that I'll hand it back to the board.
Okay, thanks. Jerry, before we go to you, any discussion about the board, any comments from board members?
How does the county decide that it's 2 EDUs? Do you know about their internal process? Or
I don't know the details.
Generally, it's if there's a kitchen type, usually a bathroom won't do it. It's usually if there's another kitchen.
Well, for myself, I went to a meeting about bees there, bees and pesticides about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. It looked like kind of a glorified chicken coop to me. I don't know, downgrade what the county's calling a unit, but it sure did look like a unit to me. But it's been a long time since I've been there. I know there's some bad feelings between the county and this property. There's been some litigation over the years, so I don't know if that has an impact on how the county is dealing with this issue or not. I mean, can't we go on the site and look and see if there's a unit there? If there's a unit there, then by golly, it needs to be 2. And if there's really not a unit there, I don't know. Is that something that we could?
I would hesitate to go that route, Frank, because there are so many variables. We get people who say, well, I have this kitchen and this toilet out here, but it hasn't been used in 30 years. Every parcel has a different set of circumstances. So, yeah. And I haven't, to be clear, speaking just for this evening, I haven't been to the property. We're relying on the Marin County's response.
Okay, Jerry.
Thank you. I'm Jerry Draper. I live in 11 Sacramento and San Anselmo, and pretty much everything that the manager said is correct with regard to our property. And I did meet with the tax appraiser today, and I got a full understanding of how that number living unit is determined. And so they, are willing to come out and look at the property, and basically, technically, it is a second unit, and the number for appraisal purposes is correct. And what we have here is we have two systems. We have a Marin County Assessor Master Property File system, which is used for criteria to appraise properties for tax purposes. And then we have another system, which is the Ross Valley system, which is based on equivalent dwelling unit. Basically, how much you flush is what you pay. And in speaking with our appraiser, Greg Pryor today, he doesn't feel unofficially that the purpose of that number 2 in the dwelling unit or the living unit is designed to actually assess a sewer service charge here. So, in my career as a computer professional and looking at large databases, it just basically we're taking one system and we're using it and applying it for another, and that's what Greg just said. And I would completely discount whatever we're doing with our property has nothing to do with an appraiser assessing our property for anything. That's a totally separate deal. So what I see is just we have two different systems that are there, and we're trying to apply the assessor's master property file to sewer surcharge. And in our case, and talking to your staff, they said there are probably several hundred, but nobody really knows. I spoke with one individual who has a pool house, and that's being charged an EDU. And so, like in our case, it's a barn. We run an organic vegetable farm for 21 years now. And honestly, we'd probably be paying maybe $10 to flush the toilet. That's what we're talking about. It's not really, I feel like, wow, that's $10 to flush the toilet. That's really expensive. So our particular place, we have one lateral. So our house and our barn are on one lateral. We have the potential for a second unit, but it's not a second unit today. It doesn't have a water meter that would be approved by MMWD. They require a separate water meter. We have a commercial water meter for our organic vegetable farm in that. It's all one piece of property. And then the building itself lacks heat. Nobody lives there. Has a toilet. Has all the infrastructure for a potential unit, but it's not actually a unit. And I think that there probably are other properties in the district that probably fall in this category, like this person I spoke with, who has a pool house that's being assessed. And we've never been assessed 2 EDUs in the past. And so we feel very strongly that there's this one system is kind of being glommed onto another, and one size fits all, but we really don't feel that that's justified. And over 10 years we would be paying $6,000 or $8,000 to, and we're very fine if we convert it to a second unit. If that ever happened, which we have no intention of doing, we're fine to pay our fair share. I served on this board for 4 years, from 1988 to 1992 with Leo Cronin, and things have really changed. We never met here. We met down at the Sanitary District building, and so I understand that things come up, but that would be our request that we pay our fair share, which would be a single EDU. It's my wife and I and my son live there, and so that's our situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Bring it back to the board.
When did it change from 1 EDU to 2 EDU, and were you given a reason why that occurred?
It was last year when you started applying the master property file system to your rate structure, I believe.
Yeah, I'm guessing what happened, because I think we've been using the same, I'd have to verify this because unfortunately, again, Wendy is much closer to the process than I am. I think we've been using this, as far as I know, the same source of information from the county. But what we did last year was we did a pretty thorough, basically quality control check on all of our records versus the county records. And we also, that last year was the first year, as the board may recall, where we started sending out the annual letters to the ratepayers with the goal of more clearly explaining to them the basis for what they were actually paying. Prior to last year, remember this is that annual ratepayer letter we send out, and it's customized to each property owner. So those two efforts went on in parallel, and this is kind of I think somewhat of a guess on my part, Jerry, but I'm thinking that that's probably where the change got done, is in that process we made a lot of corrections to many different customers. And if you guys recall, when that first batch of letters went out that year, we had quite an influx of people coming in based on the new numbers. So my only point in explaining or mentioning all of that is my guess is that in that process, that's where the number got updated in our records, and then as in many cases, that letter did exactly what it was intended to do, which was to provide more clarity to every customer versus what's on the tax roll, which is pretty minimal, what the basis for their rate charge was. So then, I think in your case, probably made it pretty clear all of a sudden, there's two EDUs being applied.
Well, I kind of understand the system, and there's no way that the county appraiser would change their records. From the appraiser's perspective, it's correct.
Yeah, we would have updated our. That's what I was getting. Is I think our records had some errors versus the counties when we did that kind of big cleanup and correction on them. So, again, that's probably how it occurred this past year or two, why it actually occurred.
So, if I may ask one additional question, one for now. Right now, there's a lateral coming from that barn that's never used hardly. If you were to remove or make inoperable, like what you said, that lateral, and had the appraiser, the county come out again and say, oh, Mr. Draper, now it has
no, they don't do it based on laterals.
It's just square footage or something out there?
But if you didn't have a water out there, that's what I think you're talking about.
Well, in the barn, we have a toilet, and we have a sink, and so and a food preparation area. So from the planning department's perspective, it can be a second unit, and the appraiser uses that information to make an appraisal of the property. So it doesn't have any relevance to whether there's a lateral or not. They don't look at that. That's not something that they think about. It does say in Greg's letter that the assessor's master property file is the primary thing, but that there are other considerations. And I would invite you to come out and inspect the property and take a look at it, because it just no problem. Just take a look at it and you look at it and see if you think that that's an equivalent dwelling unit.
Well, that's, what I'm worried about is that we've got, 15,000 homes in situations like that, and we could be called out a lot. I pay 2 units for a vacant structure.
I'm sorry?
I pay for a vacant structure, but it's got a little kitchen and everything else. I've been paying 2 units for the whole time. And I know that I talked to Wendy about this, and she said that others have been able to get the assessor to change it from 2 to 1.
They won't change it.
They wouldn't change hers. But I think there's been 3 or 4 that she's had come in and have changed it. They looked at the actual setup and cut it down to 1. You don't need a separate lateral and meter to have multiple units.
Right.
A lot of multi-unit buildings have just more than each. So, other comments by the board?
So my understanding is that if we were to make an exception in this case for that, we would basically be changing our billing structure for this person, and so then we would have an influx of other people.
Well, there's that. I mean, you really have to be. I think that you need to come up with some very specific criteria and recognize that the district is taking on the burden in the future of establishing EDU count for properties. And that's a very big leap for the district. That at the moment, I think I could say with some degree of certainty, we don't have that capacity or the expertise to undertake. Yeah, it's
A question if I may. We touched on it a little bit. The county went from one dwelling unit to two this past year. Do we know what drove that? Do we know what?
No, I think if I'm understanding correctly, the county's records have shown it as two.
Oh, it has all along.
Since the probably 99 or 2000.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so
okay.
Because their purposes are different from the purposes of RVSD. So they're different. You're using a metric that they use for one purpose, and you're applying that metric to another purpose, and there could be several hundred properties. It's possible, but we file for homeowners exemptions by signing an under penalty perjury thing. Nobody comes out and does bed checks. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a huge burden, but for me it's a fairness issue. That's why I'm here. I feel like we should be assessed one unit. We're one unit.
We have a Larkspur resident who comes down from time to time. He's got a home and he's got a second unit, but he doesn't rent it out, but it's a second unit. And he keeps coming to our meetings and asking us to go from 2 to 1. And we don't do that. He makes a good argument.
We didn't even have a rentable unit.
He says, I have a rentable unit, but no one rents it and I haven't rented it for years.
We don't even have a rentable unit. That's not even a livable space. The barn.
Does the public use the bathroom? You've got an organic farm.
No, we don't. We're not open to the public.
You mean the building, the barn isn't open?
The whole place. It's a private. It's our residence.
You have that organic farm.
Right. We have members that come to the farm and pick vegetables.
And do they use the bathroom?
Very rarely. If a child needs to go, we let them in.
You have members. I mean, I know that my wife was shopped at your.
She's a member.
She's a member? How do you do members?
We have a process to go through to be a member. And she came over to the farm and went through that process.
Okay. Well, what's the pleasure of the board?
I want to call the vote.
Call for a vote? Would you want to make a motion?
We're going to go with staff recommendations because I don't think we can. Because it's like Greg said, this is a county ordinance, am I right? And we would supersede and we'd have to change our ordinance and then all these people would come forward and we'd have to go into all these special exceptions.
That's really the primary hurdle I see is that we know it's an imperfect, it's a less than perfect dwelling approach, but it's what we rely on. I don't know clearly how we would address all of the various circumstances and individual issues that would arise. You'd have to be prepared to go down that path and look at each case as they arose. And have some very clear criteria again to which to do that.
Right, so you're getting into planning.
Right.
Yeah, planning departments.
Yeah, you guys might be able to speak more to this because, and Jerry, you actually alluded to this. I mean, I think that the county uses the new counts for a variety of different purposes. All kinds of different things. We, along with again, I think almost all of the sanitary districts use them for this purpose. I can't really comment on whether it's the appropriate use. I mean, I think for the vast majority it works out relatively well, but there's always going to be properties where it probably doesn't look that good to be applying it. I can't recommend changing it. I guess I should.
You say you have food preparation. Kind of along Michael's lines, if you eliminated food preparation and went back to the county, they probably would lower it to 1 unit.
No, we don't know that.
We've been in the planning process for 13 years over other stuff there. It's very, very difficult to work with the county. I wouldn't even, that's a whole nother.
Okay, do you do food preparation work?
I wash the eggs from the chickens. I mean, you know.
I'm really reluctant to
Okay, I'll ask again, can I call the vote?
okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Well, I have to say the findings on this, you can't just, so this is to not approve the request for the refunds to the service. This is the motion. To not approve the ratepayer request for refund sewer service charges at 11 Sacramento Avenue, San Anselmo, APN 177-190-04, because this would be an exception to the standard billing practice as designated per county ordinances. Is that clear?
No, there's no county ordinance.
No, yeah, for a district ordinance.
For the
The
district
district's
ordinance
doing
for
ordinance.
EDU?
Yeah.
Is that clear?
I'll second that.
So this is basically a motion of denial until such time as the applicant can talk the county into.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that is actually what the county should appeal, like appeal the county meeting.
Okay, any further board discussion? All in favor? Elected aye.
Aye.
I was just and I'll go with you to the county and like get fired and sing outside and be a healthy guy. I wish they could be smarter.
Okay.
I bet if you disconnected the food prep and put it outside, just a sink or something, they probably
Yeah. See. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Sorry. Okay, item 10, presentation of final report on large diameter gravity sewer condition assessment. Great.
Okay, yeah, so this is just an informational item for the board this evening. There's no vote, no decision being made. Back in late 2013, the district started the work through the contract with Brown and Caldwell to conduct what we call the large diameter gravity sewer condition assessment study. And this study is filling in a big gap in the condition assessment of the district sewer system, and it's helping us complete the total assessment and meet our various obligations under some of the enforcement actions that require video inspection and condition assessment of the entire system. What we refer to as the large diameter pipes are the pipes that are beyond the capacity of the district crews and equipment. They require a lot of specialized technology and practices. And that's why the work was originally put out for study. The work has been completed, and the findings and recommendations from the large diameter system condition assessment are what you're going to hear about this evening. And we've got 4 people who can answer questions when we get done with the presentation. We have District Engineer Radilishi, and we have 3 staff from Brown and Caldwell, one of whom will go through the presentation. And after the presentation, we'll open it up to questions and discussion. I've seen all of this. I've found it to be just a really fascinating study that they've conducted with some pretty amazing technology that's out there these days. And again, I think you'll see it's basically filled in a big gap in the that last big segment of our condition assessment. So with that, I'm going to hand it. It's Peter, correct?
Yeah, I'm Pete Bellows.
There you go, Pete Bellows.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Pete Bellows with Brown and Caldwell, the project manager, and with me is Eric Zalkin, who is our project engineer, and he's going to talk about some of the inspection technologies. But I wanted to thank you for this opportunity to come in and make a presentation.
What we plan on covering tonight is project background, the large diameter gravity sewer LDGIS system inspections, the condition assessment, and then the recommendations. The district has about 195 miles of gravity sewer. The large diameter trunks, those are pipes greater than 15 inches in diameter, account for only about 5% of the total length. The 2013 cease and desist order requires the district to perform a condition assessment on the entire collection system, small diameter and large diameter, and to rehabilitate the significant defects. The CDO also requires the district to implement a infrastructure asset management plan to undertake the inspections and the rehabilitation. Through 2014, about 90% of the collection system has been inspected. This is small diameter pipes that have been done primarily by the district crews who are using district equipment. But one of the areas not inspected, as Greg was saying, was the large diameter pipes. Those pipes greater than 15 inches in diameter. They had not been inspected yet because they require specialized equipment and procedures that the district does not have. So our project sewers are shown here in red. The oldest pipe dates back from the 1920s, starts on Shady Lane and comes down to Kent Avenue. In the 70s, there was a parallel sewer built, a reinforced concrete pipe, and is built right along Corte Madera Creek. There are extensions up to serve San Anselmo and Fairfax. And this system brings the flow down to Pump Station 15, Kentfield, which then pumps it to CSMA for treatment. We also have a small portion of the Bon Air tunnel that had been previously rehabilitated. So overall, we looked at 8 1/4 miles of 18 to 42 inch diameter pipe. It also includes 3 twin siphons where the pipelines go underneath the creeks. Our study did not include every large diameter pipe. Pipes that had recently been rehabilitated or are now under rehabilitation were excluded because there was no reason to do an inspection of them. So the purpose of the study was to determine the condition of the large diameter gravity system pipes and identify rehabilitation. There are several challenges when we were doing this work, and I'm going to spend a few slides going over those. The status now is that the field work was completed in about 4 months. The condition assessment report submitted. You have the executive summary, and the project's ahead of schedule. So one of the challenges deals with pipe materials. The large diameter gravity sewers, system consists of a wide range of pipe materials, and we listed them here in the table, and they're shown on the figure. Pipe materials are important because it's a prime indicator or prime cause of how a pipe deteriorates and fails. So for example, the district has a large diameter non-reinforced concrete and reinforced concrete pipe. Concrete corrodes in the collection system. As it corrodes, the concrete walls narrow, they lose structural capacity, and it leads to failure. So in order to do a thorough condition assessment, we need to know how much concrete has been corroded. So we selected specialized inspection technologies, in this case 2D laser, that actually measures very precisely the interior diameters of the pipe so we can determine how much corrosion has occurred. Another example is techite. I think you're probably pretty familiar with techite and the problems that it's occurred over the years. Techite fails differently. It doesn't corrode as much as it deforms. And as it deforms, it goes out around, it can crack and then collapse. So to do our condition assessment, we need to very accurately determine the ovality of the pipe, how far it has deformed. And again, we use the 2D lasers for that work.
I thought we were just about out of techite. We were replacing us
4,600
a budget a year with Magnolia project. There's still more out. We're still finding more.
Yes, and that's a really interesting point. the original district records were rather vague on where all the tech height was located. And by going through this inspection, we've actually been able to identify, we think now, all the locations of the tech height, so we can update the GIS and include it in the rehabilitation program.
Is it one run, 4,000 feet, one straight run, or is it?
No.
It's broken up?
Yeah, it's broken up. So the tech height is this orange color, and it's amazingly located in different spots. It's not a normal way for doing interceptor design. Nobody's quite certain how it came about like this.
It's a board decision. Sorry. Sorry.
What I'd like to do now is ask Eric Zalkin to come up and speak for a few minutes about inspection technologies and some of the results from the actual inspections.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to present this. So I wanted to talk about the inspection technologies that we selected for use during the project to overcome some of the obstacles and challenges that Pete mentioned. On this slide, we show the different technologies we used. First of all, there's two ways of getting the equipment through the pipe. You can either drive it through on a tractor, or you can float it down on a kind of a raft setup, as you see there. The driving system is used primarily in smaller diameter, so we'll use that from 6-inch all the way up to 18 to 21-inch, depending on the pipe. It works well if there's not a lot of debris in the pipe, and if the pipe's relatively dry and not full of water, because easily you can see it's not that tall, it can submerge the camera. We will use the larger diameter, or the raft mounted with different sensors for larger diameter, because we can float that down, and it doesn't matter how much stuff is on the ground, is on the base of the pipe. It'll float over it, and with the sonar you can actually measure what's underneath the water, and it carries the other sensors to measure above and take pictures as it goes down. So the technologies that we can mount on these different platforms, both of them have a visual unit which takes a high definition scan of the interior of the pipe. Basically like the Google car that goes down the street, it's taking a bunch of pictures, and the software stitches those pictures together, and you get a full image of the inside of the pipe. And that was the panorama system that has front and back, and the other system just takes a forward image. But that allows us to see very clearly at much better definition on these large diameter pipes the actual condition, where when you're floating a normal CCTV camera down, the lens at distance and large diameter doesn't show up very well, and gets fogged over, and you don't get the definition. The other sensors that you can see over here, we've got the laser wand. These are all mounted on the raft system. A sonar head that's mounted underneath and measures under the water, and then of course the HD camera. And the platform collects all the pieces of information at the same time as it floats down, and it's not manned. So the sonar, finally, the laser, as you see in this graphic, the laser measures anything above the water line. It shines the laser on the interior of the pipe. It's able to get very precise measurements. And then the sonar tells you what's underneath. It'll tell you the shape of the pipe, or if there's debris, you'll see this actually it will follow the debris profile rather than the pipe. Again, all of these are mounted on the one unit, so we were able to efficiently collect all the data in just one pass. And another benefit of the raft system is that since it's autonomous, it goes down and collects the data. You can start at one manhole and float the thing down a mile. All you have to do is pop a manhole lid and check and make sure it's going down. They wipe off the lens and keep going. So that really makes it easy for traffic control. You don't have to block a street. You don't have to park a truck on top of a manhole for half an hour each time you inspect. So that really helped out in this situation. This is a summary of where we did what kind of inspection. We used the HD scanning on the entire 44,000 plus feet. We also did laser inspections on some of that, and that was governed by how big the pipes were and what the material was, so we knew exactly where we wanted to get the laser data and where it would be most beneficial. We did sonar inspections on 23,000 feet, where we were looking for in one of the large diameter siphons, and where we thought we might encounter debris, we wanted to measure that. And in order to complete the inspections, we had to clean about 13,000 feet just to enable the equipment to get through. So that was pulling out root balls and settled gravelly debris in some cases. And then our vendor also went in and looked at the interior condition of about 43 manholes in order to see if the concrete condition was soft or if it could give us any more information on what the connecting pipes might be experiencing. So some of the results from our inspection, and we wanted to show these because we think that this is a good demonstration of how valuable the laser data can be. When you're looking at the images on the top, these are pictures from a severely damaged one of the non-reinforced concrete pipes, actually in the Shady Lane pipe segment. The images on the top are what you see in the HD, and they look fairly round. You can tell that this isn't in good shape necessarily. It has some fairly large cracks in it, and it looks like it's not in the best condition, but it's still there. When you look at the laser data, you can tell that the pipe is shifted, and it's got no strength left. It has failed. It hasn't failed in the sense that it's collapsed and it's full of dirt, but it's definitely not holding up the dirt anymore. And any shift in the soil around the pipe could cause it to collapse.
What is the diameter of that one? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, this is a 21-inch diameter pipe, the non-reinforced concrete pipe. And interesting you should mention that because also when we shine the laser and look at the data, that's the blue line around here, and the green line is what we expect. That's a 21-inch diameter superimposed on that. So when we look at what the laser can compare it with the original 21-inch, we know that that pipe doesn't have the same kind of cracks as this one. You can see maybe something starting up here, but the pipe is failing. It's lost enough of its wall so that it's in danger of going from that to this very quickly. And in this case, you can see the outside, the diameter has gotten over 2 inches larger than what it's supposed to be. And when the walls are only about 2 inches thick, then that tells you you've lost a good deal of concrete. This is another section of pipe on the same line. It's not as dramatic as the last one, but it does show you that all throughout that line, we were able to determine the amount of concrete wall loss that we've had. And so, out of a 2-inch thick pipe, if we've measured up to 1.2 inches of concrete loss in that pipe, you've got very little of a shell holding that pipe up, and we make the assessment that that pipe, although we can't see rebar, which is the normal indicator of corroded pipe in a reinforced concrete pipe, we do know that it's really close to the edge, and our assessment is that that pipe's going to need rehabilitation very soon. And finally, a picture of the Techite pipe, where again, as you're looking down at the camera, you see some discoloration that's could be the effect of corrosion strain, and where it kind of begins to discolor and deform, but you can't see that in the picture. But when you look at the laser image, we can tell that that pipe has collapsed. It's begun its deflection. And Techite pipe is rigid, but it also behaves a little bit like a flexible pipe. But we don't want it to flex, because as soon as it starts flexing, that means it's lost the strength, the hoop strength that it needs to hold the soil up. This other pipe, again, you can't tell that much. You can see that it's probably deformed. When it gets to 12% deformation, even less than that kind of eliminates it from being a candidate for CIPP relining, just because you don't want to put a liner in such an oval pipe. So we're getting that information where there's certain spots where the cracking has gotten, where you can see the longitudinal cracks at the top, combined with the ovality, tells us kind of where we might need to dig up a pipe and fix a certain section rather than just run a CIPP liner through the whole thing, where it could very easily fail in the future. And with that, let me turn back over to Pete here.
All right, so to summarize some of the key findings, based upon the inspection work, Techite pipe, those fractures, which are large cracks, delamination and buckling in some areas. Some of the pipe you see is in very poor condition. The Techite pipe with a lot of deformation. Other parts were not as bad. The non-reinforced concrete pipe that we saw in the first two slides that Eric showed, severely corroded and failing in several areas. The reinforced concrete pipe, which came in the 1970s, has minor to moderate corrosion and is in better condition. Although it is deteriorating, it does not need rehabilitation now. And then the other pipe materials that are exist within the large diameter system, PVC, vitrite clay, are in good or stable condition. And the CIPP, that is a cured in place pipe that's actually within the Bonnier Tunnel. It was rehabilitated with CIPP several years ago, and so we inspected a portion of it to see how well the rehabilitation was holding up, and it's holding up very well. So the CIPP has been working well for the district.
Did any of your work extend the life of any of these pipes? You did some cleaning, but it was only cleaning?
Yes. No, nothing we did actually extended the life. It was all inspection.
Do we know how many spills have occurred in the pipes this set of pipes you've set? In recent years, do we have any idea?
You know, I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that.
Are any of these in creek crossings? Any of these pipes?
Yes, there are creek crossings at 3 locations. And the 72-inch goes right along Corte Madera Creek for an extended period, extended length. Although that was built in the, as I said, in the 70s, and it's a reinforced concrete pipe.
And that was actually in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But the other creek crossings will actually go under a creek and they can go under the creek we might be sucking in creek water. You didn't see anything like that?
No, we didn't. And actually, we used sort of an unusual procedure with the district's help on the creek crossing inspections where they were dewatered, so we could visually inspect the interior of the pipe, and when they were dewatered, they were not leaking. One of the creek crossings is made of techite, though, and techite is always risky because it can deteriorate quickly. All right. So, taking these findings, we developed recommendations. Our approach, of course, is to address the most severe corrosion and structural defects, which are similar to the PACP grades 4 and 5 that's required in the cease and desist order, and this relates particularly to the TV inspection results. Our approach also was is to recommend that the techite continue to be replaced in a systematic manner, but most of the system that we expected just needs monitoring of the remaining pipes. Particularly the reinforced concrete pipe needs to be monitored because it is corroding. It doesn't need rehabilitation now, but at some point it will. So this analysis is done on a reach-by-reach or manhole-by-manhole basis. We take that information, we use it, and put it into the SMART tool risk scoring, which is part of the Infrastructure Asset Management Plan program. And we use that to prioritize rehabilitation needs in the large diameter versus all the pipes in the collection system. And so where we had badly deteriorated pipes that have a very high score, indicating that they need rehabilitation quickly. We also had to use engineering judgment here because the SMART tool is based upon the PACP process, and PACP process actually doesn't incorporate laser data. So we use engineering judgment to come up with a comprehensive prioritization. So then we took each of the segments and each of the reaches, and we grouped them into segments based upon their condition and locality, and we came up then with 5 segments that we identified as priority 1 rehab, 3 segments as priority 2 rehab, and then reinspection of the other pipes from 5 years to 20 years based upon their condition and material. And so, with these segments, then we went through and came up with estimated costs for rehabilitating them. The priority 1 total length is just a little under 10,000 feet, and we're estimating about $9.3 million in rehabilitation costs. Priority 2 is about 5,000 feet, $4.7 million. So overall, out of the 44,000 feet that we inspected, almost 15,000 need to be rehabilitated at a cost of almost $14 million. And these are shown on the figure. The priority 1 is in red, and priority 2 is in blue. And then the black are where we're recommending continuing monitoring.
That's about $5 million a mile.
Yeah.
It used to be 2 million a mile, isn't that right?
These
When I was
are
at
big-
board
these are
4
the
years ago.
the bigger pipes.
Oh, is that
That's the problem.
Double
If we're talking about costs, there was some cost considerations. We base our costs upon rehabilitation, primarily with CIPP, cured in place pipe, which, as Charlie mentioned, is being done on the Doherty Avenue now, and the district has done it elsewhere, and it's generally worked really well. It includes the manholes in the areas that are corroding. We had inspected 40-some manholes and found different levels of corrosion in them. We included 30% contingency and a 35% allowance for design, CM, and administration, and then estimated the cost in 2017. So that's the cost I presented a couple slides ago. One point I want to make sure to make, though, is deferring the rehabilitation could increase the cost. So you saw, for example, the concrete pipe that was already starting to collapse. That pipe really can't be CIPP'd anymore because it's too far gone, so it'll have to be dug up and that specific area and replaced. If the rehabilitation is deferred too far in the future, more of the pipe will end up in that condition. If you had to replace the entire pipe, it would increase the cost by about 50%. So in other words, CIPP runs about 2/3 the cost of straight replacement.
You said the manholes are corroding. Is that rust that's corroding them, or?
No, the manholes are primarily
I should say they're covered.
No, they're concrete.
Oh, they're concrete.
Right. You have precast concrete sections. You also have older brick manholes.
Not the covers. You're not talking about the covers.
No, I'm not talking about the cover. I'm talking about the barrels. Yeah. All right. So we've been working with the district to figure out how this, how to deliver this rehabilitation projects. What we recommend is a priority 1 projects be rehabilitated in the next 3 years, priority 2 in about 5 to 7 years. We're developing with the district an implementation strategy, looking at the financial resources, priority of the rehabilitation, the capacity the district has to handle more actual construction projects, designing construction projects, and then delivery options. Should these be traditional design bid build? Is it possible to save time and money by doing design build? Thank you. Design build, where you bring the contractor on much earlier in the process.
Does that get pretty expensive, design build projects?
They potentially they can save money. They're not done all that often on pipeline projects because one of the big factors in pipeline are other utilities, and so they can be a little open-ended, but they can be done more quickly than a design bid build. And the plan is to come back to the district, to the board in 2 months with a strategy on how to go ahead and proceed with this work. So with that, I'd like to open up for any more questions.
I wanted to know if these costs were, now added on to our projections of capital expenditures, or were there some placeholders?
I expected that to be the first question. So the short answer is that most of these, not all, but most of these costs are new in the sense that they're not in our current planning numbers because we hadn't conducted the study. So we have been trying to emphasize that point in past discussions that, for example, when we talked about what the next 4 or 5 years look like and what the financial needs are for the projects. One of the big, in fact, at this point, the only big remaining uncertainty was the large diameter condition assessment studies. So that gap in our knowledge of the system and the overall magnitude of the future costs has now been answered, to at least at a macro level or a high level. Pete, can you do me a favor and go back to that table that has the priority 1 and priority 2? Yeah, this one is a good one to talk from on that topic. So, for example, because we already had enough information in past work on that very first segment, Shady Lane Trunk Sewer Rehab Phase 1 North, we have that $3.3 million. That is in our 5-year program already, because we had information and we anticipated that was going to be a necessary project, and the study basically just confirmed it, but we had enough information again from past work. So if you look at just what we're calling the priority 1 work, it has a cost total of about $9 million, $9.2 million. And about 3.3 of that is already in our financial forecasts and project forecasts. So there's roughly, in very round numbers, there's about $6 million in that 3-year horizon that is not in our current, planning numbers. And then when you go out to that 5 to 7 year window, the second part, the priority 2, which has, if I'm reading the numbers right, the subtotal of about $5 million. None of those are in the current project planning information that we have. So if you're looking out, let's say 7 years, this is indicating very round numbers, about $9 to $10 million in capital projects that we had not yet identified, again, because we didn't have the information to do so. If you tighten that up and say, okay, let's just look at the next, 3 years, so, which is much more defined, over the course of that time, we've got about $6 million in new capital work. And so one of the steps, now Brown and Caldwell's work is largely done at this point. Their scope was to conduct the study, provide the findings and recommendations based on the assessment, and then as what Pete was alluding to in that last slide, our challenge now is to come up with a sustainable, timely way to actually implement the work. We can't just rush out and try to shove $14 million worth of new work through the system. That's the exact opposite of what we've been trying to move towards. What we've been trying to move towards is a steady, predictable, managed capital process. So the homework we've got over the next couple of months is to take the results of this study and look at alternatives as to how we deliver the work, trade-offs, potentially. For example, this is just an example. We're targeting about $5 million a year. Pardon me, let me rephrase that. We're targeting about 5 miles per year of the regular small diameter pipe per year to meet our goals there. But we may need to look at 1 or 2 fiscal years over the next, in the horizon of the next 3 to 4 years, where we reduce the work on the small diameter work so that we have financial resources to support some of these most critical projects. It's not a zero-sum game in that sense entirely, but it certainly, we only have so many resources. We've just passed a 5-year rate schedule. We have a pretty good idea what our financial resources are, so we need to find a manageable way to work in the highest priority, elements of this work. And then the elements that are in that 5 to 7 year horizon, we've got time to, to figure those out a little bit more down the road and to look at funding strategies for them. And that could be a number of things. That could be things like the SRF loans. Ideally, in a perfect world, it could be pursuing some of the new grant opportunities that might be coming around with the Prop 84 and Prop 1A monies. But basically, that's the next step, is to figure out okay, now that we have all this new information and these new projects, how do we do them in a way that doesn't bust the bank and that is also sustainable in terms of the district's capacity to deliver the projects? So that's a long answer to your question, Tom, but that's kind of it.
Any other questions?
And these are conservative numbers, by the way, I just want to point that out. I mean, as Pete noted, and that's appropriate. These are planning level numbers, which, planning level, they're not the exact. They have a 30% contingency for uncertainty in the actual final scope of work, et cetera. So consider them to be, plus or minus numbers at this point. But we're not talking about $1 million worth of work, and we're not talking about $50 million of work. We're talking somewhere in that $10 to $14 million worth of work.
But Vivian and the IAMP knew that this information would be coming in. And
Correct.
so
Yeah.
it'll be incorporated in a dynamic way.
Correct, right. The whole purpose of not the whole purpose. One of the key aspects of the methodology of the asset management plan is that it's not static. We don't lock down a plan and stick to it for 5 years, come hell or high water, that's what we do. When we get a major new piece of information like this, we absorb it, we figure out what can we adjust in terms of priorities. And for example, again, when we look at the stuff that's 5 years out, we've got some time to figure out where that money might come from. It doesn't necessarily have to be, okay, that can only come from rates. Are there other things we can do, grants, et cetera. So this will be an update to the IAMP, which will be probably kind of revisited and issued anew probably in another year or so because we're going to have so much new information. But this is a big gap. This is filling a big gap.
And I assume, some of the things that went into the IMP and what our priorities were about what flex to fix included pipes near water, pipes near schools.
Yep.
But if one of these big guys collapse, the whole system gets backed up and it's even worse, right? So that'll go into figuring out when we should do this.
Yes.
Right, and as Pete alluded to in the one slide, they did take the initial findings and all of those standard parameters that are used in the risk model. They worked with Vivian to run it through and confirm that, these, out of all of these pipes, which are the ones that are highest priority to fix. And that's what you've got with the priority one short term. Those weren't just kind of winging it, selections. They were very rigorous in terms of the condition assessment, then the risk assessment, consequences of failure. A good example, you've got a fair segment of Tech-Eye pipe that's essentially under downtown San Anselmo. Very, very difficult to get to, work area, kind of place where if you have a catastrophic failure, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be very difficult to deal with. So that's why that would be a good, one that is a high priority, near-term priority problem. So, but at the moment, what we're looking at is we need a couple of months to kind of work with this information and bring you back a refined implementation plan, for the work. But this has given us essentially, 99% of what we need to do to figure that out.
Any comments from the audience?
So is this sophisticated enough to tell us when the next major spill is going to occur and where it's going to occur? Have you learned anything from this?
Well,
our spill potential. I mean, that's where we get nervous.
yeah, it tells you, it certainly told us where some very, very risky areas are for the district, Frank. I mean, we can't say when something might occur, but when you have unreinforced, almost 100-year-old, unreinforced concrete pipe, where this is very, this is best industry technology that they've applied with the lasers and the sonar and all that. When you have an unreinforced concrete pipe with 50% of its wall thickness gone away, or in some cases clear measures of buckling, it's a matter of when, not if, that pipe is going to have, in some cases, have a failure. So it won't tell us when the next SSO is going to occur, and hopefully there won't be anymore, but it's certainly given us a good, clear picture of the risk. So, yeah. And I think, for example, on the siphons, those were a big unanswered question for the reasons you guys have kind of noted. They are obviously in many cases under the creeks, they're very sensitive areas, and it has identified some of the siphons to be, keep an eye on them, they're doing okay, and it's told us out of all the siphons that are in the system, which ones we really need to focus on. Yeah.
That was very interesting.
Yeah.
Very much. Yes.
In your discussion of replacing the pipes, you said that in certain areas, the pipe is deteriorated to the point where you can't use CIPP. So you said that it's going to have to be trenched. Why wouldn't you pipe burst it, as long as you've got an opening there?
That's a possibility also. You can pipe burst, reinforced concrete, we're pipe bursting techite.
Yeah, we just did pipe bursting on techite up on Doherty here last weekend.
What's
Right, I saw it go into the ground.
diameter? What's the diameter? Like, is there a cutoff for a certain diameter when you're doing pipe bursting?
They're doing pipe bursting as large as 42 and 48 inch diameter.
Really? Wow.
And select, it's
Wow.
big equipment.
I didn't know that.
Like this.
Yes.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 11, consideration of the ordinance number 71, an ordinance of Sanitary District number 1 of Marin County, amending ordinance number 66, extending the effective date for common interest properties. Now, this is our amending our lateral ordinance. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just do a quick overview on this. So this is a continuation of our ongoing efforts on refining the lateral ordinance. And just as a quick background, the board is all aware that the full ordinance is in effect at this point. It applies to all the properties in the district in terms of point of sale, inspection and testing requirements and so forth. That became effective January 1st. And in our continual effort to, understand how this affects the customers and how to actually implement it in a practical manner, two areas have really, remaining challenging areas have been identified. And they're a small portion of our total customer base, but they're very important. And the one that this addresses is basically the condominiums or the common interest properties. And this is a challenge that most of the programs face sooner or later and have to make some adjustments for. And the challenge with the condominiums in terms of the lateral ordinance is you've got this complex of properties that are individually owned, airspace condominiums, et cetera. But then you've got this physical network of laterals that might serve, anywhere from 5 units to 50 units. And when a sort of strict interpretation of the ordinance as it is today, if I have a 20-unit complex, as soon as one unit wants to sell, the whole complex is essentially now under the requirements of the ordinance. And the practical impact of that is, hold it, do we truly have to go inspect, test, do everything on the entire complex to have even one single unit, be able to change hands? And so what we're working on is some practical updates to the ordinance to allow a complex to essentially develop, an overall plan that gets done over a couple of years and is like an umbrella coverage for the whole complex. And ideally, we set that up like with the HOA, we set a schedule, et cetera, and once that's in place, the property sales aren't encumbered individually. It's now got a responsibility of the overall HOA. So what the actual ordinance number 71 is doing is actually quite specific and very narrow. It is putting essentially about a 60-day timeout on the property transfer provisions only of the lateral ordinance to give us time to develop some specific updates to the ordinance and work out the details so we can bring those back. And if those get adopted, then all of the condominium complexes will then start to work under those guidelines. The staff report kind of goes through a lot of this. I'll just touch on maybe a couple of highlights. We actually did quite a bit of outreach. We've had some very constructive discussions with the HOAs already. We've also had some outreach over to the folks at East Bay Mud who have also had to learn some of these lessons about how to make this work. And they have some good examples of some solutions we'll probably consider. This by no means puts the whole lateral ordinance rollout on hold. The condominium properties make up about 7% of all the parcels by parcel count, and they make up about 5% of the EDU count. So 95% of the district properties are all unaffected by this temporary postponement. This is very narrow, just for the condominium properties. So that's the effect of Ordinance 71. It puts a temporary hold on the property transfer provisions only for the testing and inspections, and gives us time to bring back some detailed alternatives. The idea is to meet with some of the larger HOAs around Ross Valley. We're already working on that. Talk to them about practical solutions, and bring you back an ordinance update that actually specifies in practical terms how we're going to apply this to the condominium properties. And then we would essentially implement the requirement from that point going forward. So that's what you have in front of you this evening, and answer any questions.
Any comments from the board?
In a condominium, excuse me, in a condominium complex, what's inside of the building, that's just part of the building.
Correct.
And the lateral is from the clean out at the base
Onward.
to the main.
Yeah, right. Roughly,
Okay.
yeah. From the foundation, we generally say, if you leave the foundation of the building, onward.
So let's say condominium B over here wants to sell, and they do a CCTV here in the line, and they find, uh-oh, there's a problem here. Why is that any different than a house? It's just then if they replace that piece as part of the homeowners association, then for the next 20 years, any of those condos in that thing are fine to sell, there's no problem.
Right, right. Well, so the difficulty is that every complex is physically, they're all so different. So that you might have 10 units with a single line leaving the unit. You might have 4 units with a single line. You probably have a few cases where literally you might have a handful of clustered units that have their own laterals, but in the majority of cases, you have multiple units on one line. And so you don't know what you're going to find. You may video inspect that line and go, gosh, you know what, there's $10,000 worth of work that has to be done here. And now it's work that really is benefiting all of the condominiums owners, but you've essentially said, okay, that has to happen right now because this one unit wants to sell. So it's provide. The idea here is to provide them sort of a blanket plan that they can follow that addresses the whole complex and takes it out of the hands of, in the sense of the individual property owner.
Got it.
And we did, by the way, this challenge again from outreach with East Bay Mud and others. They ended up following a very similar road because it just becomes very practically difficult to, like Spyglass. Spyglass must have a couple hundred units and all kinds of different configurations, and the last thing we want to do is take that whole complex and sort of put it under this freeze that says, essentially you can't do anything here until you've fixed all the sewer laterals. That's kind of an extreme example. I think, more of our condominiums in the Ross Valley are in that, probably 4 to 20 unit type size. Some may elect to come in and just fix the whole thing, and if that's the case, then boom, they're done for the whole complex. One other quick comment for the board's awareness. The other item that this discussion brought to light for us is that, the district, I think, is doing a really, and I think the folks working with us would agree, we're doing a pretty good job of providing financial incentives. And we also have the loan program now, as the board approved last month. What we didn't quite figure out was exactly how we can apply some of those assistance programs to these same types of properties. And so it was kind of like, well, it was never an issue before because the grant program I forget why the grant program never triggered this issue. Do you recall, Randall? I forget.
I believe it's because the condominium owners and the subsequent seller of a condominium, when those came around, never had to think about it.
And it was voluntary,
It was
so they
voluntary.
just never did it. So it's a slightly different topic from this evening, but I just want to give you a heads up. We are, because it came up during the outreach workshops with the realtors, and it's something we're thinking about is, we want to provide the same types of incentives to a condominium complex, but we're not quite sure yet exactly how to do that. So we'll probably, on a separate topic, we'll be bringing you back some ideas about suitable or constructive financial incentives for the condominium complexes also. But that's not on the agenda this evening. I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up about it. All you'd be doing this evening is approving Ordinance 71, giving us 60 days to figure out some solutions for the complex.
Is that enough time?
I think it actually, yeah, the solutions, we have some really practical ideas that have already been time tested in the East Bay. Luckily, there are our guinea pig that's 5 years ahead of us. So we're able to learn from them. But we think it is. Hopefully it will be.
But this one only applies to sales, or is that what it is?
Yes. Tom, we did it on purpose. We don't want anyone to think that the entire Ordinance 66 has somehow been set aside, because there's lots of other requirements in there that don't have to do with property sales and so
What
on.
if a condominium has a construction project?
And in what sense?
Would that trigger?
Like a remodel, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. That's part of this exemption.
It's in here too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything to do with the type of building is told until.
Yeah. They do not have to do the testing and inspection at this point until they, until we come back, at least for the next, it'll be for 2 months after this.
And more comments?
A question. A flag lot, say there's 2 or 3 homes up here, and there's one lateral that takes it out along a long driveway out to the street.
Yeah.
And one of those street wants to sell, and then we do a pressure test, and then it doesn't pass.
Yeah.
Are those included in this?
Yeah, so Frank, those were the second group that we got, we spent a lot of time talking in the last workshop about, and we've actually worked through a few. And those are what we call the common lateral situations, and there's a number of them in the district. We don't know exactly how many, but they tend to be a lot of the older properties where, just as you described, you might have 3 or 4 homes that, because of the way they're configured, there's really a series of laterals. This guy, goes from this parcel, this parcel, this parcel, and then down to the street. We've really reread and re-examined the ordinances as everything we have, and what we've concluded is that in those cases, the property owners can come in and fix the laterals, if needed, within their property boundaries. And they can do that on an individual basis. And they don't need to, so if you have 5 homes, you don't have to address all 5 homes before home number 1 can sell. So at the moment, we don't see any need to change the current ordinance, and Randall and I actually just worked through a situation up in San Anselmo with a gentleman under this situation, and that's the approach we're taking. So if you're the home in the middle of 3 homes and you're getting ready to sell, what you need to do is take care of and there's a lateral that goes through your neighbor's backyard or starts at your neighbor's house, goes through their backyard, continues through your backyard, and you connect to it, and then goes to the next one, and so on. If you're the guy in the middle, what you need to do is, under the ordinance, there's no change to make this happen, you have to come in and inspect, if necessary, and ultimately pressure test to show that your portion of the lateral is in good shape. and that's what we're asking people to do. There was some discussion about whether or not we would make a situation like that where all 4 homes would have to separate, and you'd sort of have like 4 separate laterals running through people's properties and coming down to the street. And the more we evaluated it and talked to other districts, and we said, that there's nowhere in the language that says that that's required. The old ones are not; they're essentially grandfathered in. That doesn't mean they get a free pass. It just means that they have to upgrade and fix the lateral within their property. So we think we found a pretty practical solution to that one. That takes care of.
Do you envision changes in the ordinance as a result of the review that's going to take place?
For those situations, Frank? For
what we're talking about
Oh,
tonight.
for the condos, yeah, definitely.
So, do you think you can get that done in 60 days, have the changes, have it back here before us in the form of an ordinance?
Yeah,
and get it approved? I mean, I
well,
don't
if we
know.
want to, I'm generally, we've been trying to be conservative in the sense of not giving too much leeway. I certainly would have no problem, I know the staff would have no problem with having 90 days. If the board's more comfortable with that, that's, we can make that change. It just gives us that much more breathing room to work this through. So I certainly have no problem with that because we have a lot on our plate right now.
Well, actually, this is about 75 days, isn't it? Because it's, all the boards are all in April, and half of 5th.
Do you need to bring it back to us?
661
Do you need to bring it back to us in April?
That would be the idea.
So they need to bring back a new ordinance to us in the April meeting.
Right.
Yeah, that's
In order to have a new one go into effect by May.
So it's going to work with June 1?
How about
I will.
Are we a nice board?
I was just going to say, I'm not going to argue with that one. If the board would like us to make that June 1st, on that on page 2 of the resolution, so that it's shall be
Considered at the May board meeting.
Yeah.
What happens in the meanwhile?
In the meanwhile, if you are a condominium property owner, you simply go forward as you normally would, and you're not subject to the provisions. And remember, I know that may sound like, okay, well, aren't they getting a pass? This is a long-term program, and it's something that's going to be around for decades, and it's going to take many years to roll out. So I think having a couple of property condo transfers that occur and don't trigger this, is a small price to pay for getting the ordinance right in the long run. And also, almost as importantly, if not as importantly, the district has, for a whole bunch of reasons, we've had really, really minimal opposition to this, and it's been really great. I mean, the new head of the Marin Association of Realtors, the new president, was at that workshop, and he was very supportive of all of this. So we are in a very positive situation where the majority of people we're working with are like, yeah, I get it, I don't really like it, but I understand why he wants to do that. So I think it's imperative that the district maintain within reason that that good working relationship with the community rolling this out and not take too hard of a line. If we lose again a handful of property transfers, but we then have a successful program that's going to be in place for the next 20 years of property transfers, I think we've come out way ahead. And right now, to a whole bunch of people's credit, and I do want to recognize the MAR folks because they've been, really, really good to work with on this. We want to bend over backwards, I think, to make this good for people. The community has been very supportive of it, and I think it's good for the district to kind of return that support, so to speak, and be flexible on these things.
I've talked to a couple of realtors who are recommending to their clients that if the lateral's over 20 years old, they automatically replace it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you hearing that from realtors?
That's kind of it is a comment we hear quite frequently.
Rather than test, fix, test again, just fix.
Yeah, and we recommend, and the ordinance was actually updated prior, to encourage a voluntary inspection first before you do anything. And like this one we worked on recently was a good example where Now, that one ultimately turned out to be less than 20 years old, so it was not a problem, but that was a lateral that was in really quite good shape, and the inspection showed it to be in quite good shape. Now, if they'd been older than 20 years in that case, they very reasonably probably could have come in and done some very limited repairs, done a pressure test, and most likely been successful. So the message we're sending to everyone is, don't ever just go straight to a pressure test. Start with a low-cost, CCTV inspection, get a good contractor, and see. If you're fortunate, your lateral's in good enough shape, some spot repairs might take care of it. So.
If a motion's in order, I would so
Well,
move.
then we want to get comments from them.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Miles O'Dwyer.
Sure.
I just wanted to clarify. So this change to the ordinance 66 basically sets aside the HOAs or condominium developers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Temporary.
But how does it handle the 3-unit houses on the hill that you mentioned?
Okay, so that was Frank said. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Correct.
So on those guys, you've come to kind of a working arrangement where they're going to fix the private portion of the common lateral. When does the common lateral ever get fixed?
I'm not sure.
So I've got 3 guys up on the hill.
Okay.
Okay, under the ordinance 66, you're implementing it and saying the private portion, so from the house to the common, is their responsibility when the middle guy sells his house. So I've got this bad pipe coming down 200 feet down this hill that is never going to be fixed, because when house number 2 and house number 3 sells, they're going to fix the private portion.
Well, whose property is that 200-foot stretch on? That's going?
It's a common. I mean, it's coming down the hill.
But it's on one of the parcels.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that's the other issue that you've got. You say you're only going to fix that portion of the pipe that is on the property, when many of these private laterals run. I mean, if a pipe's coming out, say the center of the house, it's going to run across someone else's property to get there. So we're only fixing the portion that's on the property. We, in many cases, will leave a large section, conceivably the largest section of the pipe, unfixed, even under that scenario, where you're only dealing with the private portion. But I would say that the commons go down these hills, and they run over many people's property. And it's not the guy who's selling the house anymore. It's down the road, the neighbor who's who's letting it go on by his property.
Okay, so it's going through somebody's property, but that property doesn't
connect.
Doesn't utilize that lateral. Okay, that's a good question.
I mean, I'm not looking for an answer right now, but that's a consideration that needs to be.
No, it's a great question. That's the problem with the common laterals. I mean, they have so many variations. Like the one we looked at the other day, I think was a good one where, clearly it would work, where each property owner would take care of it sequentially. Randall, do you have a?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in to provide some clarification on how these would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. The instance that you described, Mr. Dwyer, is very akin to any other single property owner who has a single lateral across traverses many different properties. It could be a couple hundred feet long, it could be 50 feet long. Right. It all depends on each particular case, and it may cross multiple properties. It is very clear, and I'm sure that council would substantiate this opinion, that lateral is serving the benefit of that one property, or the property that's nearest to and enjoys the benefit of that lateral crossing multiple properties down to the sewer connection main line. In the case of people who are on multiple shared laterals, there is the proportionate cost of how the developer of that land created that subdivision, parcel map, whatever it might be. Some lots are narrower, some lots are deeper, some lots are very large, some are, again, very small. And it's going to be the person that that has that longest portion that they have to share the cost in, that we allow them opportunity to negotiate that cost amongst everybody else who has benefit of that common lateral.
I think I see what you're saying. Yeah. And so partly too on the common laterals, what we've again talking to other districts and how they're addressing them. The thing we're also finding is that we have a lot of some practices we want to start following. Like the minute we know we're dealing with one common lateral or a property on a common lateral. And this is something I've learned, talking to folks down at some of the SASM agencies in Sausalito. Use that opportunity to send a standard communication to everybody on that lateral to let them all know you're all on this lateral. Because a lot of people don't even know. I think I'm sure you probably see this people don't know. They're like, well, I moved in 5 years ago, and until there's a problem, I just
Went away.
Yeah.
Went away. What's the problem?
So we want to always encourage them to, first of all, is everyone aware you're on the same lateral? We always want to encourage easements. We always want to encourage agreements, and then sort of take it on a case-by-case basis. And I think the example that what you just described, that last long run, would really, I guess technically, we would say, well, it's the responsibility of the last property owner that's living or using that lateral. But ideally, you'd want him and that property owner and the 2 or 3 above them to voluntarily work out an agreement for them to take care of the whole system and encourage them to do that. We can encourage it, we can push it, but ultimately at this point it would be, if I'm understanding how you're describing it, Randall, that last property owner would be responsible for it.
It's no different than somebody who happens to live at the top of the hill and only has his one house, his or her house, go down through 3-4 different
Now
properties.
the tricky part, and I know we're a little bit into the weeds here, so we'll stop, is, but for the board's understanding, one of the problems with these older ones is there's no easements. And so you're into an entirely private property issue where in most cases there's no recorded easements, there's no agreements. So we really are trying to find a way to effectively encourage the property owners to work together, but our levers are kind of limited. So we've got some ideas on how to push that more effectively, but at the moment we're saying fix it within your property boundary, take care of it within your area.
If your lateral's gone down the hill for 100 years, and it's been there and the other property's on top of it, don't you have, I'm going to use the word and I'm not sure it's right, prescriptive easement? Don't you have the right to use that because you've been there the whole time?
Can you dig up
Yeah.
the property?
I don't know.
Yes, you may. I actually think this is slightly more complicated in terms of who's going to have to pay. Who, in the end, if the neighbors don't agree to split the costs, whom the district can force to pay for it, and the easement issue you raise only complicates it further. Because what are our neighbors, and how can we obligate somebody to do that?
Yeah.
What we're probably going to find is that we solve one situation and then another.
Kind of. We have a complicated service area, as you guys know, a lot of history. So.
Okay, back to the board.
If the motion's over, I would so move that we adopt ordinance number 71, amending ordinance number 66 of Sanitary District Number 1 of Marin County, approving the findings as listed and extending the effective date of Section 11 Common Interest Developments for compliance with Section 7 Mandatory Inspection and Testing.
To June 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, to June 1. We're going to change the date in the ordinance from May 1st to June 1st, 2015.
Okay, second. Okay, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Very good. Okay. Item
Do we have to move
Roll
all
call vote
ordinance?
for an ordinance?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think tonight.
Or it's just a resolution?
No, actually, it's just technically an ordinance amending an ordinance. So yes, roll call vote.
Thank you. All right. Scylla. Aye. Forstein.
Aye.
Meigs.
Aye.
Gaffney.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Egger.
Aye.
Apologies.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item 12, consideration adoption of resolution approving the travel and other expense reimbursement policy.
Okay, so this is a item that we've been trying to get to the board for a very long time, but it's taken a while to move this back and forth internally and with the union. It's pretty straightforward. The district had a mix of relatively out-of-date expense reimbursement policies on the books. And what this proposed new expense reimbursement policy does is essentially update and provide a single, consistent expense reimbursement policy that applies to everybody at the district. So whether it's the general manager or a maintenance worker too going to training, we follow the same rules, same basic process for expense reimbursements. And at this point, this has been reviewed and bought in, so to speak, with the union as well. So that was actually our final hurdle. It's a modeled on some other public agency ordinances that we thought were, after reading them, were practical and seemed to work pretty well. It sets very specific criteria, for reasonable expenses, what's covered, what's not, et cetera. So with this policy, if it's adopted, will apply to basically everyone at the district, and we are recommending its passage, obviously. I won't go through it piece by piece. It will become a new policy applicable to everyone if we adopt it.
Okay, I've got a couple of, I think, tiny additions, okay? Like on attachment B, reimbursable expenses. And I know we covered this, but costs incurred while conducting, right down the bottom there. Includes travel-related, food, and I'd like to put non-alcoholic beverages there.
Sure, where are you again?
I'm really down at the
Oh,
bottom.
here we
of
go.
attachment C.
Okay, food and
Non-alcoholic.
Sure.
And then
Wait, where are you?
so right on the bottom of attachment B. Right there, non-alcoholic.
It's in the ordinance.
It is.
It's already in the ordinance.
Well, I know, but I'm looking for here. And then on page 3 of 7, in 2A1, it says, please refer to policy P306. Okay, so it's page 3, procedure 2A1. And last, right at the end of 306, do we have a policy here? Didn't we do 305?
Yeah, we do have a policy 306. This is basically, well, actually, let me rephrase that.
Okay, we'll just check that.
Okay, let me verify that. I think it's training, education, responsibilities.
And the other thing I would like to add is on page 6 of 7, and the approved for reimbursement and the not approved, there is alcohol there, but also add tobacco.
Okay, okay.
That was about all I had.
Okay.
Other comments by the board?
Very good. Yeah, this is just a nice overview of it. So,
other comments by the board?
So some of this policy reflects union, right?
well, they have, yeah, we met and conferred and went through this with them.
You did, okay,
Yeah.
that's all I needed to know. So they're okay with it?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
The policy, if I may, the policy is very similar to another agency which I serve.
Yeah.
The other agency does require us to provide a copy of our insurance, proof of insurance. Not just fill out a form, say, yes, well, I have insurance, but we've got to provide a copy of our, the portions that refer to what they're requesting, 100, 300, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. This is for automobile travel?
Automobile, when you're driving a private vehicle,
Sure.
it's taking a company.
Sure.
I think it's attachment D. I don't know, it's not a big deal.
I guess at this point, it's a legal requirement, isn't it, for proof of insurance? Is it-
Well, this agency requires you to bring certain
To
pages
show
of
it,
your
okay.
insurance plan and to show you,
Ah.
to show, yeah.
I see.
It's kind of belt and suspenders, I guess.
Mhm.
Depends on how far you want to go to verify that they're telling the truth.
It kind of irks me when I have to go find my insurance policy. Drag it out, copy it.
I'm okay not having, I mean, I carry, I own shares of the law, so.
If it's a law, you have to have it in the car. You get
Okay.
The law doesn't
Okay,
require
any
it.
other comments, comments from the audience?
Okay, and just so if you need these, like, the standard form is an Excel form that if people are more, prefer to use it that way, we'll make that available, but hard copies will be available, so.
And this would apply to us also, because
Yes.
we are technically employees in the
Correct,
district.
correct. We had 3 different policies before, so this is a nice cleanup. Good.
I move that we adopt resolution number 14-1475, approving a travel and other expense reimbursement policy with the one change being added, alcohol, no alcoholic beverages, and no tobacco.
It's on reference.
I mean, if you really want to get into it, your list could go a mile long. I'll second that.
So a question, so is this form then filled out after a trip?
Yeah, Frank, that table is what you use along with receipts and so on, and that's what our accounting folks will go through and verify. This is actually somewhat similar to one we've been using, but yeah, you'll use this form.
Okay, so the other agency one of the other agencies that I belong to, they calculate that all out. I guess that they, from this location to where you're going, and they cut you a check in the beginning. They pay the hotel, and they cut you per diem check, they cover everything, the mileage, et cetera.
Ahead of time.
And ahead of time. And you don't come in and say, oh, by the way, I spent an extra X amount of dollars on whatever. That doesn't fly. They just,
Yeah.
they have a fixed amount, and they calculate that out for you.
Yeah, but this allows you to charge less up to a fixed amount, so this is probably better.
It's actual,
It's
not.
less, not greater.
It's actual, not just the per diem, you know it.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second, is it a roll call vote?
Scylla?
Aye.
Meigs?
Aye.
Forsy?
Aye.
Egger?
Aye.
Daphne?
Aye. Okay, great, thanks. Item 13 has been continued.
Yes.
Item 14.
Do you have copies? Draft that policy.
The expense reimbursement? Oh, yeah.
So the next part.
Okay,
Yes, they're at the front.
Let me read it first. Item number 14 is discussion and direction of proposed board president rotation policy.
Okay, so this, I know, Tanya, the
I'll make copies.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you.
Sure.
Excellent. So this item was one that we brought at the request of the, board member. It's very brief staff report. We currently, the board elects all the officers each year. And the proposal is for consideration of a rotational policy for the board presidency. And as we mentioned in the staff report, this is something that is really exclusively at the discretion of the board. The staff doesn't have a recommendation on this. We're just looking for direction from the board.
Is this the entire thing?
Yes. It's front and back.
So this is a new policy that was just granted in December of 2014. And they had some issues at their board meetings about location, and they finally met as a group. Conti talked to me about this, and she said that it's working very well.
And this is for the College of Marin.
Yep, it's a brand new policy.
Any comments from the board?
Well, one thing would, it would take the guessing out of who's going to be the next president of the board. I mean, if you have a policy, it is what it is.
Well, not necessarily, because a board member could be up for election and then not get reelected. And so.
Well, then you plug in the next person.
Right, but so you don't really, you have an idea who might be next.
There's a rotation list, I think, on this.
So do we want the board to provide direction to staff on developing a new rotation policy, other action, or take no action?
So right now, there's no rotation policy.
There's no rotation.
No,
It was informal stuff.
Yeah, we researched everything we could find in terms of the board policies on the books, everything we could look for, and there's, other than the practice, let's say, of the election of all the officers each fiscal year, that really was all we could find. There was nothing on the books. So.
Going back before me, it was Marcia Johnson for 2 years. Before Marcia Johnson, it was Pat Roscoe for 2 years. It was before Pat Roscoe. They were doing 2-year terms.
Okay.
But now we've transitioned to 1-year terms. So that makes it easy. This is probably a good way to go, is to set up a policy and write it. Take all the guesswork and whatever out of the process.
The 2-year period wasn't a 2-year period, was it? Wasn't it just 1 year with sort of a rubber stamp on the second year?
No. It was basically a kind of a, unwritten word that the present position is a 2-year position.
Well, we voted though on the second year.
Okay. I'm inclined to say no, let's elect who we want to be president.
Well, I'm telling you, I don't want another board member to go through what I've gone through. And it's created so much antagonistic Brown Act, mistrust. If I leave anything behind, I really would like to see us work that out. It's just not, it just creates a lot of bad feelings among the board members. Everybody should rotate. Nobody's perfect. Some people are better. Some have a lot of experience. Some have no experience. It doesn't make them a better board president because your buzz is going to put you in there. So I think everybody needs to rotate fairly, and that's why it's here. And that's what was happening in the College of Marin. It was a lot of infighting, a lot of mistrust, and that's why they put this together. So I'm just saying.
You think we have infighting?
I think how this board elected Mary and you have been a major ongoing problem. I've been here 4 years and I wanted to be it, and you all three said no. And the only feedback I got was that I'm too nervous, I'm too anxious.
That's not exactly true, Pam. You and I discussed it beforehand when you asked if I would support you, and I gave you my reasons why I would be disinclined at that point.
Okay,
And if,
well,
if you would like to discuss that
so
with me.
everybody has their issues on who they are, and I think if you continue to elect a board president based on not liking someone because of certain issues, politics is the issue here. I'm just trying to make the board be more fair and create really fair criteria for how the chair is rotated. That's all I'm saying.
My only comment would be that when I served as the president, I found that the president, in working with the general manager, made interstitial decisions, was called upon to reflect, in between the meetings, what would potentially be the will of the majority of the board. And it became clear to me that having the majority of the board elect the person who serves as president is part of the good functioning of the board. So I think there's a reason why it's a majority vote. It doesn't mean any one person should or should not serve as the president, but at the moment it needs to, when the decision is made and the president is chosen, I believe it needs to be the majority.
And so if there's a board member that's not getting along or creates some issues that confronts the staff, then the other board members are going to elect the board president according to those issues. You know, that's just not the way democracy is. Democracy
exactly the way democracy is.
Well, it's the will of the majority. I don't agree with you. Everybody needs to do a fair rotation.
When you're talking about a board president, it's not that big a deal.
No, it's not. They don't have a power.
And I think if everyone here is elected, has an opportunity to be board president at least once, or in that term, I think it's okay. I think it's proper, and it gives everyone here a little bit of stature when they're the board president for that year.
Given my campaign, our campaign, Frank, the board president's, I'm surprised to hear you say it's not that big a deal, because that meeting was a big deal for those of us who recall.
It depends what the board president does. The board president can let the manager run the whole show, or the board president can exercise a little leadership and explain to the manager, that the board needs to participate a little more than maybe the manager would like. I mean, I've worked under a number of scenarios, from you name them, I've been there. This is just something, a policy like this would just be a fair way to handle it and take out the angst and let everybody have an opportunity to be board president.
Okay, does anybody have a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion that we direct staff to develop a policy of rotation of board presidents similar to the College of Marin's policy. It doesn't have to be exact, but to develop a similar type policy of the board president rotation for 1 year, for 1 year at a time.
And bring back a draft policy.
A draft policy.
Is there a second?
This is not the way you work together, people, Marin. I'm telling you. It's really sad. This is a sad day for this district. I'm telling you. Talk about wanting to let things go. This is a chance to let it go and not have your three sown here. That's why I brought it here. That's the other reason I brought it here, is to get rid of this 3-2, or at least try and open it up. So I'll do the second. And the other issue that I'd like to add to Frank's thing is perhaps maybe it could be brought to the strategic plan. Do you think? Could this be part of the strategic plan? It's kind of a...
Well, I think policies and practices for the board that you guys think are important are appropriate.
All right.
Okay, any further board comment? Any comment from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
No. So I guess you got it next year.
No, yeah, that is not a fair statement, and if you want to behave.
Well, we're not going to move ahead on this policy.
No, but
So that means that you guys will
you have
continue to
something
keep your board president, whoever
No,
you want.
if you would like to make it so that that's the case, I could go with that, but you are more than welcome to present your case.
I try.
Well, only once with me.
I don't, you know what, it's not going to the individual people, that is breaking the ground act. That is going, am I right, Council? Is going to each member to ask for your vote for the board president. I don't think that's appropriate, and that's what's happened on this board.
That wasn't what happened with me. Okay, item 15 is general manager's report.
It did.
I don't have anything to report out this evening. We haven't already covered, so nothing new.
Okay. Any comments by verbal?
Oh, I'm sorry, actually, one part of the, I wanted to just address a prior request that we're working on. And Frank, you had asked about getting an update on the spill history.
Yes.
And I apologize, we were going to try to work that into this month, and we've had some delay. I thought we had too much business, and then I was going to, basically, the plan is to bring that to you guys next month. And It'll be a comprehensive report on the past 12 months of SSOs, and also compare those to the prior 2 years to kind of see how the district is doing. One of the things that kind of muddied the water on that was the state changed the category definitions, last year. So what's now what we call Category 1, Category 2 is different than at least what it was in prior years. So I just want to make it clear, we did get the request, we will be bringing you back that, so. Okay.
I mean, that's one way we can measure our success.
Progress, hopefully, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So you need verbal reports of board members.
Well, just a quick comment. Item B is the report on human resources management activities, and I read the report. And the contract ends June 30th of this fiscal
15,
year.
right.
With RFD. And I don't know where we're going next fiscal year. I mean, we talked about that we're going to try to get a handle on these costs and perhaps end up with a HR person or maybe sharing HR with the county of Marin or city of Santa Fe. I mean,
yeah.
So we're coming up on March. We've got March, April, May, and our contracts got 4 months to go. And so we ought to be preparing for what we're going to do here.
For what's next? Okay.
For myself, I'm just into spending another $200,000 this next year, and I know it's 4 months off, but it's going to rapidly come up on this.
Okay.
That's all. Just
okay. Very good.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, motion to adjourn.